Sissons, across for Yossi, and they score! Roman Yossi backed it in! A physical shot!
Caroline, Willy, Dmase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Allow me to start off today's show with a big ol' how about them Predators. My goodness, a 7-game winning streak. Absolutely just whooped some Minnesota Wild butt last night. John Hines comes back into Bridgestone Arena, and the Preds drop a 6-piece. Beat the Minnesota Wild 6-1 last night. The Predators are playing their best hockey of the season. Roman Yossi is playing his best hockey of the season. UC Saros is playing his best of the season. This Predators team is so freaking fun to watch, and the winning streak continues. Willy Dmase, happy Friday. How we doing?
Hey, doing well, other than, this rain out here. But, it can rain if the Predators win the way they did last night. Great job for the guys out there. Again, when you have a away streak that they put together right before coming to Bridgestone, and then taking care of business right before the Wild, because many thought that was a trap game because you got the Wild. You're thinking about the Wild.
I thought it was a trap game.
Trap game. They come in, they take care of business against Ottawa, then they come back and they take care of business against Minnesota. Hats off to them. I mean, they're getting scoring right now from everybody. I think it's a contribution from everyone on the team. Everyone that gets a chance to get on the ice, they are contributing in some form or fashion. Secondary scoring is up. UC's playing lights out. Yossi's playing lights out. I mean, right now, and you never know how long it's going to last, but right now it seems that they found their mojo, or like some players have said, or coaches said, they found their game.
Mm-hmm. They're vibing.
Well, please do not lose it, okay? You found it, keep it intact, and make this push for the playoffs. But they're looking good right now.
It's impressive. It's hard to explain how things have turned around so much since that one game. And despite the one game against the Stars, if you look at the history of the team, now it's 25 years. They haven't always had the big bye week where you play maybe a few less games, but in terms of winning percentage, it's the best February that they've ever had. And it included the 9-2 loss where the team kind of hit a low point there. But you guys are right. There's a lot of areas. The best players are playing great hockey, and the complementary players are all on their game as well. And they're The one that they're using all the time, the term is everybody's pulling the rope, right? Everybody is making contributions. So you just have to hope that they can continue to ride this wave. They're not going to win out. There's still a quarter of a season left, but they put themselves in a position where, you don't have to win 3 out of every 4 games to make it now. They're giving themselves a little bit of slack. They're going to have to keep winning to secure that spot. They're not there yet. A lot can happen, but it's so compelling knowing what we've been talking about the last few weeks as we approach the deadline, which is 1 week from today. The decisions that Barry Trotz has to make that are going to alter or not alter the course that they're on, and with the big picture in mind.
Willie, is this team being talked about, considering what they've been able to do? And listen, I understand how quickly this game can change. I do, but they put together 7 impressive wins. Are they getting talked about from a national standpoint the way you believe they should, considering, where this team was projected to be, what Coach Bruno and Barry has been able to do to assemble, this team, young and old, but now they're starting to hit their stride. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully it continues. But are they getting the attention nationally?
I don't think so. I think the national picture would be they've overachieved and they should sell. I still think there's a lot of, from the outside, that's probably what they think. Not a threat to do anything in the playoffs is still kind of the consensus, I think, from the national people. And to be honest, I think right
I
now,
don't
if you look at their
disagree.
personnel, it's not a team that looks like it could. They would have to be better than the sum of their parts to have success in the playoffs. But I think we've seen over the years, anything can happen in the playoffs, especially if you've got one of the best goalies in the world, which they do. But as we've said, there's still a lot of things that can happen between now and even making the playoffs. So I say just enjoy the ride and keep chipping away. And Barry Trotz has to kind of keep that even keel and balance the excitement of the moment with the big picture too.
And I think there's a couple of things to consider here, too. Keep in mind, just have fun with it. Have fun with the fact that there are important games happening at this time of year. It wasn't that long ago when I was thinking, man, this could be a long march for the Nashville Predators of trying to kind of muster up the excitement to go out there. If you're, a handful of points outside of a playoff spot, maybe looking like it was getting closer and closer of not making the playoffs. I thought, I don't want the last month of the season to be a whole bunch of games that you're just finishing out with no hopes of making the playoffs. So I want to enjoy important hockey. I want to enjoy that every single game matters from now until the trade deadline, from now until the end of the season, because I don't think a lot of those teams on the bubble are going anywhere. It kind of feels like right now you may have put the fork in the Minnesota Wild, but there's a lot of hockey left to be played. I don't think the Wild are going anywhere. I don't think Calgary is going anywhere. So having all of these games matter and mean something and be very tightly contested, I love that. I love that these games have playoff implications. The second thing is, too, there's a difference between, now until the trade deadline and now until the end of the season. Because as Barry Trotz has said, look, as long as we're in a playoff spot, I don't want to trade UC Saros. It does kind of feel like right now the approach going into the deadline has shifted than maybe what I thought the approach should be about 2 weeks ago even, or a month ago. That it doesn't seem like there's going to be a big old fire sale. I think Barry Trotz wants to see what he can get back for Tyson Barrie. The Tommy Novak situation is an interesting one, which we know has a different feeling to it, considering they want to sign Tommy Novak before the trade deadline. But it doesn't sound like UC Saros is going anywhere. From the way that Barry Trotz was talking with Jared earlier this week, I don't think that he's necessarily wanting to trade Alex Carrier. Maybe it's a Tyson Barrie situation and a Kevin Lankinen situation, but I don't expect the Predators to be overly active at the trade deadline. But that doesn't mean that what you do from the deadline until the end of the season doesn't matter. Those games very much so are very, very important.
Oh, it would be disappointing, I'm sure, and there'd be a lot of people saying, I told you so, if they stand pat and then don't do very well in the last quarter of the season, which anything can happen. And people saying, you should have traded this guy, this guy, this guy. I've thought about this a lot. And I know that Elliott's his projection of what a Tommy Novak could be worth, for example, I think was eye-opening to a lot of fans. Wow, you think they could get a first-rounder for Tommy Novak? Man, that's tough to pass up. I understand that. That is because I don't think any Predator fan has viewed Tommy Novak because he snuck up on people.
Yeah.
Right? He was in the minors for a long time in Milwaukee and never really got the call-up. I always go back to the beginning of last year when they went to Prague to start the season. He didn't even go on the trip. He was left behind with the rest of the Milwaukee team, and they took extra players, right? When you go to Europe, they let you bring more than 23 players so that you have extra players over there in case something happens. He wasn't even on that list. And then he exploded to a degree last year, but still, and then he got hurt this year. I still don't think the fans viewed him as a guy that could get a number one pick.
Right.
But now you might be able to get that for him. But he's also a guy that I think if you look at him, he has a skill set that this team kind of lacks. He's also at an age range that this team has a little bit of a hole in. So I go back and forth, and I weigh, is it worth getting a batch of more draft picks for the coming years when you are where you are right now? You already have a lot of draft picks in the coffer, and you've got a lot of prospects that aren't that far from being up at the NHL level. weigh that versus what could you do with this team, and more importantly, where does Novak fit on the next couple of Predator teams? Mm-hmm. Where does Carrier fit on the next couple of Predator teams? And if you're pretty sure you're not going to have them around next year, then that's more of a reason to lean towards trading them. But if you feel like, okay, if these guys sign the right deal, they could be part of the next really good Predators team, better than this team, then that's something to consider.
And that's the added complication, I guess is the right word, with the Tommy Novak situation, is if what he wants is not how you value him on this next contract, then that's a trade move that you have to make. Like, Dmase and I were talking about this with as far as receivers were concerned, whereas we talked about Chris Moore being the Titans 2 this past season. And I was like, well, that's a Tennessee 2. That's not an NFL 2. Like, Chris Moore might be a Cincinnati 4 and a Tennessee 2. The question that Barry Trotz has to answer is he your top 6 forward or is he a top 6 forward? I think those are two different conversations, how this team is constructed. Can he be a top 6 forward moving forward over the next 3, 4, 5 years, or is he your top 6 forward right now in a team that's going into a transition?
Or like a top 9 at a price that you can fit in, because all these numbers, Elliott threw out that neighborhood of $4 million a year. Like $4 million would be a cheap top 6. It'd be maybe a little more expensive top 9, but if it's a valuable piece and the rest of the pieces are there, you could make that work, right? But what's that number in your mind where that could be? Like, could he be a great guy to have hanging on that third line, right? In a 3-line attack where the top 3 lines could all beat you. I could envision that. If you're saying, is he a number 1 center or a number 2 center, it might be a little bit of a stretch. And especially if you're $4 million is not going to buy a top center. So it comes down to, what do you value him?
I mean, you can value him as one thing, but then, like Caroline said, well, another team may value him as a top 9 forward, but we value him as a top 6, and we're trying to get a deal done. See, this is where I think possibly Barry might have let too much out the bag, because you've already told everybody, if I can't sign him, I'm trading him. More than likely, I'm going to have to trade him if I can't sign him before the trade deadline.
So the price goes down.
Yeah, so if you're telling people that, now people are like just waiting. They're like, okay, if they don't sign him, we're just going to wait. Because if you don't sign him before the trade deadline, then, hey, the closer and closer we get to the trade deadline, the more and more that value goes down for him, because now you're pressed into making a decision. Do we keep him or do we trade him away? I think as they start to get closer and closer, unless you got a deal that's going to give him a first-round pick, they're going to sign him. Now, they may have to sign him to a little bit more than what they're willing to pay him, but I think the way that he's playing, the way that his team playing, I think they sign him back. And like Willie said, I think he's that bridge guy because of his age. Like, the Predator team for now he can play on, and I think the Predator team in the future he can play on, because he's at that age where he can give you benefit on both sides.
And then that brings up the question of the term. If you view him as a bridge guy, well, you're not going to sign him to a 6-year deal, maybe 2 or 3, but maybe he wants the security of a 5 or a 6-year deal. That's what we were talking about with Elliot Friedman yesterday. It's kind of what Barry mentioned with Jared Stillman as well earlier this week. We're close. We just have to figure out the money and the years. And it's like, okay, well, that is pretty
important. Isn't that every contract?
That is everything.
The money in the years.
That is what the deal is, in fact. So the Predators, huge win last night. Not just in the score, a 6-1 score, but also who you beat, where that sets you up in the standings. Now the Predators find themselves in a very comfortable position. I want to throw a few questions at you. We can rapid fire these. It is foolish to think that the Predators are going to play at this level every single game throughout the season. It is foolish to think that they are going to win every single game on their schedule. That's not going to happen, but ride the high for now, because it is really freaking fun to watch. How sustainable is this brand of hockey, this level of hockey? Because if they do sustain this level of play, I have no reason to believe why they couldn't be competitive in the playoffs, or surely get in the playoffs if they continue to play this way. So how sustainable is it?
I mean, as long as UC continues to play the way he's been playing, over the last 6 or 7 games, the ones that he started, 950 save percentage, is only allowing just under under 2 goals a game. If he continues to play that way, then I think it can be sustainable. Now, it's not all on him, but he sure enough gives you your opportunity to win goes up higher if he's playing the game that we are accustomed to seeing UC play, which is what he's playing now. If we can get this for the remainder of the season, then I think more than likely they can continue playing at this level that they're playing. Now, they're going to get into some games where they're not scoring 6 goals, and it may be 2-1 or, 2-3, something like that. But the intensity they're playing with, the contribution they're getting from, the secondary guys, I think it is sustainable. But a big part of it is UC playing the way he has been playing when he's been in the net over the last 7 games.
They put themselves in a position now where to get to 93 points, which I think would I'm not going to say for sure get you in, but 93 I think gives you a probably 95% chance, not 98% chance of getting in. They would only, at this point, they only have to go 10-8-3 to get to 93. So when you say sustainable, a 7-game win streak is not sustainable. They're going to lose some
like
games.
the way that they're playing.
Right, the way that they're playing, I think you've hit on the key thing,
Mm-hmm.
is do you get something close to this level of play from Saros? His history would tell you that you can and will.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at the last couple of months of the year, we've done the numbers. He tends to play his best down the stretch of regular season. If you can get something close to what he's doing. And there's going to be some puck luck. There's going to be nights where the puck just doesn't bounce their way. Maybe they don't play quite as good a defense. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's never going to give up any goals. But I think if you get this level of play, then I think that is sustainable. I think that if you look at the model of the Bruno effect, mm-hmm. What are they getting? What are they giving up? For example, last year, they were outshot by 10 or more shots 23 times. There were a lot of times where it's like, all right, Juice, bail us out. They're getting 40 shots, we're getting 20 or 25. We need you to pick up the slack. And that's how they would have to win. That's happening a lot less this year. That's only happened to them 9 times this year, been outshot by 10 or more shots. More often than not, they're winning the analytic battle in the quality. So I think that gives you an idea that it's sustainable. The one thing that I think is probably the biggest question mark is, do they have enough finishers that they will convert the chances at a high enough rate? Obviously, they're not going to be a dominant team, but can they get enough goals when the hot streak ends that they'll win enough? I think enough to get into the playoffs. Is that sustainable? Absolutely. Where they are right now, 10-8-3, that's not lights out at all. And what's really exciting is, what if Novak or Evangelista, or maybe there's a couple of guys from Milwaukee that could add to the scoring mix a little bit somewhere down the road in the last quarter of the season. That's the fun part, is to say, okay, where is the ceiling here? Is it better than we thought, even though you're trying to temper expectations?
No, can they get a finisher, as you coined it, before the trade deadline without giving up, that important asset?
Now, that is a question that people probably haven't even considered, right? A couple weeks ago, probably Barry Trotz was like, is it really worth going out and trying to actually add somebody? But now, do you consider it? If the right guy's out there, as you said, without giving away anybody that you really think is a part of the future? That would be the interesting flyer to take, is what if you had one more guy who is kind of like a 20-goal scorer, not anything that's going to cost you a ton, but somebody that has a specific skill set that maybe could go on a power play and one time a couple in there, or a guy that's really good on 3-on-2 rushes, making plays. That would be an intriguing ingredient to add in there. Like think about this. Mark Jankowski, really good, solid pro who's given them a lift coming up from Milwaukee. He was the leading scorer at Milwaukee. He's once upon a time was a first-round draft pick, so he's got a little bit of skill, athleticism. But for the course of his career, he's been an up-and-down AHL player a lot, part-time NHL player. If you could upgrade and put somebody like that, somebody who's got that skill set I was talking about, maybe a little more finishing, playmaking skills with an Evangelista and a Novak, would that give you a little bit more punch offensively? That's interesting to consider. Now, would that close the gap enough to where you're standing head-to-head with a Dallas or a Colorado in a playoff series? Probably not. You'd still be a sizable underdog, but it might close the gap a little bit.
I know there are so many Preds fans. I see it in the text line. I see it on Twitter. Buy, buy, buy. And it's probably the same Preds.
It was
caught up in that a
before, it
little
was
bit.
sales.
It's the same people that were like, this team stinks. Trade them all. So it is really easy to get caught up, especially when it's a 7-game winning streak and they've been playing as well as they have been. But I think we can all agree neither is going to happen. It's not going to be a fire sale, and it's not going to be like, we are going for it and F the picks, and we're going to get everybody that we can on the trading block to come in here and help us make this push for the playoffs. Neither of those things are going to happen. I think it's going to be, it's going to be fairly conservative one way or another. Either you pick up, a salary dump that you think could maybe give you a little bit of a push and some extra oomph in the playoffs or even to get into the playoffs, or it's going to be a light sell. But I do still think that Barry Trotz should have his phone on and be willing to listen to offers. I don't think this 7-game winning streak should completely, take you off of the trajectory of this team in the long-term plan. Like, if you still get offers that blow you away, whether it's Soros or anyone else, I still think that Barry Trotz should be listening. But of course, the price is the price. And of course, the 7-game winning streak .025 is the phone number. Chris Mason will join us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts. He's been there. He's been in the locker rooms. Maybe what has been happening within the team that took this team from, a 9-2 loss clunker against the Dallas Stars now to a 7-game winning streak. We'll catch up with Chris Mason coming up next. Caroline, Willy, Dmase. We are brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
And now the quick pass down the middle, breaking in, and the backhand stopped by Chris Mason. And Marlowe with a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1, and what a stop by Mason. Cheechoo right in front, and what a stop on Ekman by Mason. And goal, number 3, Chris Mason.
Caroline, Willy, Dmase. We are broadcasting live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. The Nashville Predators are red freaking hot, and oh my goodness, how fun this team is to watch. The Predators take down John Hines and the Minnesota Wild at Bridgestone Arena 6-1 last night. Joining us now to break it all down is Chris Mason. C-Mace, this is the most fun I've had watching this Predators team all season long. 7-game winning streak since that monstrosity against the Dallas Stars just a couple of weeks ago. You've been in these locker rooms. I'm sure you've gone through these trials and tribulations and the peaks and the valleys of an 82-game season. What happens? What are the conversations that go on in the locker room? Maybe the kick in the butt that teams get to go from where the Predators were a couple weeks ago to now on a 7-game winning streak, finding themselves in a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like, I think when we talked a couple weeks ago about that, it's, Dmase and everybody, we're kind of touching on the pinnacle moment when, individually and as a team, you got to look in the mirror and say, all right, what are we doing here? This is embarrassing. We embarrassed ourselves. We're not winning at home. We just got absolutely embarrassed in our own building. What are we going to do? Are we going to pack it in? And they're going to sell everybody off at the deadline, or we're going to try to stick it up everyone's butt and, make a statement and show and play the way that we are capable of playing. We've worked too hard, all year long. They've obviously had some ups and downs, but, they've really established an identity. And I think, I look back at all the things that, Trotzy had said in the offseason. We want to get back to the Predator way. We want to be hardworking. We're bringing in winners, guys that have won before, so they can, help mentor our young players and, get the right habits instilled in them as young players, so they can, learn the right way. And then, when the next generation of young players, you've got these guys that have learned from people that have won championships. Andrew Burnett, the way that he wants them to play, I think we're seeing, all the things that he said. He's like, I want to get these guys to play fast. I want them to go. I want them to, play with the puck as much as they can. And when they don't have it, get it back as quickly as they can so we can push and play offense. And, they just had one of the best Februarys, I think the best February in franchise history, the best in the NHL. And, they're scoring goals and they're just going, crazy right now. And it's fun. You just go, as a player, you go to the rink every single day and you know the game, you're going to win. Like Juice is going to the rink now. Before it was like, I got to play good and I can't let a bad goal in. And now he just shows up and he knows he's going to play good. And it's, as an athlete, that's the best feeling in the world. And I think you see 20 guys going on the ice every single night that can look each other in the eye and they know what they're going to get and what they're going to give. And you're seeing the results.
I'm sure they're having fun because I'm having a blast. I'm not even lacing up the skates. It's been so much fun to watch this team. Chris Mason is with us. C-Mace, Barry came out and said on our station and with several NHL insiders that as long as we're in a playoff spot, I don't expect to trade UC Saros. He said, I feel like I owe it to this team in the way that they've been playing, and especially finding themselves in a playoff spot now. From a player perspective, hearing a general manager say that I feel like I owe it to this team to keep this team together, to kind of finish what they started, what does that mean to you?
I think it means a lot. I think as a player, we obviously can talk about, there's two different trains of thought here, maybe more, what the fans want, what the organization's plan is. And as a player on that team, you're not thinking 10 years down the road. You're not thinking 5 years down the road. Some of these guys might not be playing in the league anymore. They've built something inside that locker room, and that's what they fight for every day, is to win that game. As much as Andrew Burnett knows the long-term plan, he's preparing along with the rest of the coaching staff every single day to win that hockey game that's in front of him, and nothing else matters at that point. So he's trying to put the best lineup together. Finally, he's got the four lines that are getting the job done. The goaltending's going. Everything's falling into place right now for this stretch anyway. But when you have that backing, especially in the most uncertain time of the season, it could be you getting traded. It could be, the guy sitting next to you. It could be, your all-star goalie or whoever. And anything that happens is going to, affect the team in a certain way. And, I don't envy Trotz for the decisions he has to make, because they're tough decisions. But that's why that's why David Poile hired him, because he's the man that he feels capable of doing this. And he's got to look at the team right now and say, you know what, I told you guys, if you guys will make my decisions or influence them. And right now they've put Barry in a very, difficult situation in terms of, some of the moves. But at the same time, he's going to have to either get some contracts signed and, he's going to do what he has to do for the organization. But if I'm on that team, and especially if I'm Saros, that's kind of a big, exhale and a big relief. And it says a lot that, Trotz is very cognizant of what the players are doing right now, and he respects that. And the communication, I think you guys would agree with Barry, has been excellent to the media and to the players. So I like hearing that. I would love hearing that too if I was on that team.
We'll talk with Chris Mason discussing the big win last night by the Nashville Predators, 6-1 win versus the Wild in great fashion, as they did 6 games prior to the victory last night. Now, Steve Mace, Carolina asked the question, is this sustainable? Is it sustainable? Not necessarily. I'm not saying they need to continue to another 7-game win streak, even though that would be great, and we would love it as fans and people that cover the team. But is this type of play sustainable?
It is sustainable, and I've been on teams like this. I had a run in St. Louis, I had a run in Nashville, where, I guess around the league you wouldn't consider this team a top-tier team. And you get to the second half, and you get this what we're seeing right now every single night. They're not going to win every game, but they just scored 6 games in a row. The first goal, they get scored on last night, didn't phase them. Right back at it a minute and 8 seconds later, or whatever it was. They just go back out and score, and then you talk to the guys in the intermission, like, oh, you know what, it's going to happen. We're going to get scored on. We just got to worry about our game and go out and keep playing the way that we've been playing. And they did that. And it's different when athletes and everybody, you always try to say the right things, but then it's the eye test. Did they go out and do what they say, or are they able to? Everybody knows what you have to do. And I think it's sustainable. I think they've got their lines. They've got the identity. They know their roles. And it's a point right now where everybody is doing what needs to be done. No one's trying to cheat out there. No one's trying to make extra plays. They're playing to win. And, I think, obviously, I don't think they're going to win every game, and there's going to be some tough losses, and there's going to be, some more ups and downs. But I think the way that they are playing right now, which doesn't guarantee wins every night, but I think the way that they play is sustainable.
Now, as they continue to win, as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, it just we assume or we perceive it to be, they may not be sellers. They may not be looking to move guys, but, could they potentially be buyers without giving up a valuable piece that is helping them now?
Well, I think they could do it in a sense where I think Barry and, David as well, before they put themselves in a good position where they've got a large amount of cap space where they could give somebody relief, look at, maybe be a third-party buyer type of a thing. You're taking a player that's maybe, one team wants to move out for nothing, to get them off the books to add someone else. I think that's an option. I really think that Barry's going to have to look at, guys that are UFAs, that if they haven't signed contracts, to maybe try to get something of value for them, as much as he probably doesn't want to, if there's an offer there and, contract terms can be agreed on. I think, he has to look at some of those options. He's been very open about the process, and it looks like the framework is in place with Novak. Who knows if, that's still, the deal's not done, right? Until we hear it and it gets announced, it's not done. So he's, the phone lines, I'm sure, are open for for everything and anything, but they could add. I just don't think I don't think they'd give up anything of value to add somebody unless it was a player that could help with the future of this team. That's just my opinion.
Base, I think case in point might be an interesting conundrum, right? If you're Barry Trotz, you might be thinking, hey, look, a veteran that I could put out there that's got some finishing skills, and I'm not sure who that would be around the league. Let's just throw out a guy that you played with back in the day, Vladimir Tarasenko, right? He's going to be a guy that gets talked about along those circles. Now, he'd be something you'd probably have to give up something to get, but somebody like him who could score, has a track record of scoring, as opposed to maybe bringing back up somebody like Tomasino or Parsonen or maybe even a Joachim Kimmel or somebody like that who hasn't been up yet. That would be the thing you would weigh, right? If you wanted to try to say, how do we get a little bit more finish?
Yeah, exactly, and that's where I think they would look in that area. But again, it's a complicated thing, and I don't think you're going to give up a lot for Tarasenko. He's got a big number. Is he only on a 1-year deal?
Yeah,
Ottawa's probably.
They signed him to a 1-year deal, and I think it was $5 million, something like that. I'll double check this.
So that's not bad. But guys like that, and even guys on teams that are trying to make different kind of moves. If someone is trying to get a goalie and they have to move salary out, but somebody like that would be somebody I could see potentially. But again, I just I don't know. You look at Yakov Trenin; he's playing unbelievable right now. Who wouldn't want a guy like that to shore up their depth, on their team in a playoff? He's that type of a player. Alex Carrier is another guy that's been out there. It's going to be tough because I'm assuming and I'm guessing he's getting calls on all these, players more and more because Nashville's been out there as one of those teams with, some great guys. They've all got really good numbers in terms of their contracts. So that's even more, appealing to somebody trying to add because the majority of teams, especially the contenders, almost all of them are dealing with salary cap issues. So it's hard to make trades. You just saw the one, Dallas and Calgary, and then New Jersey had to get involved. They got a 4th-round pick out of it, and all they did was they ate, $2.5 million of salary because they had space. So they're able to, to utilize their cap space and get assets. And, that's something, Barry Trotz as well has the option to do, but it's a lot goes into these things, and it's complicated to make those kind of deals.
They're in a stage right now where everything's going in, right? Everybody's scoring. I think 16 different players have goals on this 7-game winning streak. If you wind it back to the section of the season before where they were struggling some, nothing was going in, right? So the truth is probably in the middle of what they really are. But one thing that I think probably is going a little under the radar is that night in and night out, they're not giving up as much as they did the last couple of years. And that's a credit to not just the defensemen, but the system as a whole. Would you agree? It's like last night, they did a really good job on Kirill Kaprizov's line. They got nothing. Those 3 guys, Boldy, Eriksson, Kaprizov, got no points, and that's been the line that's been really driving Minnesota's recent surge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm 100% agree with that because I think, all the goals, they're not going to probably be the top scoring team in the NHL in March. That's just the reality. They had a great February. But the one thing that, again, will help them sustain this level of play is they're not giving up much. They're all playing defense. And I remember, if you guys remember too, there's been a lot of times, fans are upset. Why is Tomasino not in? He's scoring goals. And why is Evangelista getting held out? He's doing great. He's creating plays. Well, the reason why they weren't in the lineup at certain points was because Bruno didn't feel he could trust them defensively in certain situations. First 2 periods, you're fine. You're in a close game. You're in the 3rd period. You want to be able to roll your 4 lines. You want to be able, at any given point, to have anyone on the ice and be able to trust them in that situation. It's a difference of winning and losing a game is one play, right? So I think now we're in a situation where Andrew Brunette would be able to say he trusts everybody in that lineup right now in any given situation. And it's a process to get to that point, especially when you've got young players. But I think now the way that they're defending, even if they're not scoring as much, which they probably won't, never say never, but just, the law of averages that will probably come down in their goal scoring here, but they're able to defend. They're not giving up anything. Saros is playing unbelievable right now. Lankinen's been great. But they are defending hard in front of their goaltenders. They're letting them see pucks. They're clearing rebounds. They're making the right decisions. defensively first and foremost, and they're getting a lot of offense because of it. That's how they're getting the puck back, is because they have numbers back. They're structured. They're tough to play against. They're tough to create on the rush against right now, because their neutral zone is so tight. They're getting pucks back in the defensive zone, stopping plays, and then they attack. And that's exactly how Bruno wants his team to play, and they're doing it more effectively than they have all season long.
And I don't know what's going to happen with the Predators over the next 21-ish games, 21 games. But I'm enjoying the ride, Dmase. This team has been so much fun to watch. Looking forward to see what happens, especially 1 week from today at the NHL trade deadline. Chris Mason, appreciate you for joining us, and we'll chat next week.
All right. Thank you, guys, as always.
Appreciate it. Dmase, he is the very best. All right, we'll get into Ask Dmase. A whole lot of Masons happening on the program today. Going to Ask Dmase at 12:30. Get those questions in for Dmase. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. But coming up next, we'll get into your thoughts, your reaction to the Predators' 6-1 win last night over the Minnesota Wild, and also what Barry Trotz's approach should be at the trade deadline. We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, Dmase, tune into 94.9 The Fan this Sunday as Vanderbilt women's basketball takes on Georgia at home. Pre-game at 12:45 p.m., tip-off at 1, with coverage also available on 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. On the Preds identity, like a 6-second clip. It's super quick.
Our partner Zen Sports is excited to launch their introductory promotion, as I have been telling you for the last couple of months. Available to all new customers in Tennessee, it's the No Danger First Wager, people. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000 No Danger First Wager when you place your first bet on Zen Sports. You will be reimbursed for the amount of your bet if it loses up to $1,000. Plus, Zen Sports has launched their VIP program for the premier bettors of Tennessee. If you think you might qualify, then listen up. The VIP program is by invite only, so if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, please check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. No other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support, bigger and better action than Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today, people. Zen Sports, betting just got better. Remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
this just the glimpse of an identity that you wanted to see out of this group, perhaps?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. You're on a 7-game winning streak. He just won 6-1. And I'm not picking on Nick Keyser, but he did ask the question. Do you like this identity? Uh-huh.
No, not really. I don't.
Maybe.
No, actually, this identity stinks.
I don't want to get on my man Nick, okay? Because Nick is working. Nick goes
Nick's
to that
doing a
rink
good
every-
job, but
Grinder.
no.
But if you listen to the whole press conference, like he'd already been asked 2 or 3 versions of that question, and I think Bruno was just tired of saying the same. I think he was just done. He's like, I've said everything I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Like, ask me something different.
Like, yeah, I love this.
And which is a good problem because everybody's excited about what
Yeah.
they're doing, and that's what you're seeing, right? Everybody is contributing. It's really something to watch right now.
This is what we've said.
I
is
think
the
he was
formula.
just his tank was empty on like my brain is fried. I can't answer this again.
And you have said that Brunette's not necessarily the most long-winded person.
Mostly no.
And so, yep, that is what I want to see from my team. Let's get your thoughts on what we saw from the Predators last night with the approach, what you think the approach should be with the upcoming trade deadline coming up a week from today. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland is on the line. What's up, Adam?
Well, you remember, like, it was like 12, 13 days ago, dude was talking about how his players are, like, talking about vacation and not caring about the sport and not caring. Whatever, man. Like, it's completely different. Here's my problem, all right? So I hear, like, should we do something? Should we not do something? It kind of makes my skin crawl because if you'll remember, Caroline, like, I think it was either the bubble series or it was right after the year after the bubble series. I can't remember for sure. But we had a bunch of young guys go on a really hot streak. And before we got to the playoffs, or either the playoffs or the bubble, we ended up pulling them all out and putting in all these dudes who had been hurt, like Duchesne. And I don't know. I know Grimaldi was a stud. And then we ended up sending him down so that way one of these guys who hadn't been there could come up and play. It's what it feels like to me. If you end up getting somebody who's proven and you take what got you there off the ice, you're not going to have the same team. So I really hope they don't change anything. If they do, like, maybe a really big depth piece, but don't change any of the dudes that have been there. Like all these young guys, that's who got you there. I would roll with them.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Adam.
Something to be said for that, not changing the chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the one continuous thing throughout the 7-game win streak is Andrew Brunette found a lineup that worked and he's sticking with it. You're not seeing a whole bunch of crazy shifts in the lineup, but that also brings up the question of balancing the right now for the long term. Like, yes, you want to capitalize on your win streak. Yes, like Barry Trotz has said, I want to reward this team for what they've done in the position that they've gotten themselves in. But if you get a great offer for a player, then you have to think about that. Is this offer for this player going to aid us over the next 5 years more than it is right now? That's a serious consideration. I don't think that Barry Trotz should say absolutely positively, no one's getting traded no matter what you offer me because we now find ourselves in a playoff spot. You have to balance both things because the end goal is the main thing is the main thing, and the main thing is the next few years and building a cup contending team.
Well, he said he's going to leave himself a little bit of leeway to, if a trade does come across his desk that is to, the magnitude of, hey, listen, we need to think about this. Well, he's giving himself a little bit of leeway because he said it already. So I don't think they're, shutting down anything, but I'm not sure if they're especially now, actively looking to move people. That's why I asked Willie, okay, if you're talking about that finisher, what can they do before the trade deadline to get a finisher, but not sort of compromise what they have going now? Because that's the tricky part about it. Like you said, Caroline, is trying to fit someone in this system right now that seems to be working, and you don't want to mess it up no way, no how. Like
Terry in Clarksville, Texas says, Willie, what about trading for a guy like Tarasenko?
Yeah, so we brought up Tarasenko with Mace, and he's at a 1 year, $5 million. So he's a free agent at the end of the year. He would be a rental.
But they wouldn't have to pay him. It'd be prorated now, wouldn't it be?
Right. So it wouldn't cost you $5 million against the cap. So the way Barry Trotz put it the other day was like you take a guy's salary, and it's like take your cap space and it's times 3. So it's prorated. So a $5 million contract, you would divide it by 3, right? You would only be paying basically the last third, or now only the last quarter, basically. So almost you're dividing by 4, right? So they have plenty of cap space to bring that in there.
Yeah.
The question would be, what are you giving up to Ottawa to do that? And there's probably a few more teams that would be interested in Tarasenko for jumping on there, just because of he's played in a lot of playoff series. He's got a cup. He's scored a lot of goals. People will try to take a flyer on a guy like that. So I think it's unlikely that it would be him specifically, because I think you might get 2 or 3 teams bidding on him if you're Ottawa.
I'm no business of getting into a bidding war.
Right.
For a rental.
Yeah. And so you weigh that versus, like I said, trying Parsonen again or trying Tomasino again and seeing if they've ironed out their game a little bit more in Milwaukee and are more ready to try it. Like, what's more valuable, having a veteran or getting another young player that you think is going to be a part of the next 2 or 3 teams, that valuable playoff experience, even if they kind of get schooled a little bit? That's the dilemma. But it is tempting, right, to look at a guy that has done it and say, wow, we could really use a guy like that. Like, think about where would they be without Nyquist, without O'Reilly? Nyquist has had an incredible year.
There were so many Preds fans that were like, why is that a move that you're going to make? That's so dumb, and they're old, and they're expensive, and you have to give up a lot to get them.
Sure. A lot of people knew very little about him.
Yeah.
I will say that, I'll be honest, I did not think he would be a first-line player. I think he'd be a nice piece that they would move around to different spots in the lineup. He'd give him a steady veteran presence. He's far exceeded my expectations for him. And that's all credit to him.
And we've gotten a few texts in the text line about Tarasenko. One, Dustin in Hopkinsville says Tarasenko is past his prime. Well, you're not trading for him to get a player in their prime.
Right,
Because
he's
if you get a
clearly
player
past
in their
his prime.
prime,
Exactly.
you're not going to give up, a 6th or 7th round pick for him on a little over $1 million deal over the rest of the season. You're not going for a guy in his prime because you're not in a window to win a cup right now. What you would be doing is, taking a salary dump because you can afford it and just giving you a little extra oomph.
Yeah.
A little extra some.
Last year, didn't the Rangers, I forget what they traded the Blues to get Tarasenko, but it was not nothing. It was not nothing. Was it a first rounder? I can't remember. Maybe a first?
I don't remember what the package was, but I remember thinking, New York, you sure you want to do that? You sure?
Yeah, and it didn't work.
It did not work.
The Rangers traded for Patrick Kane and for Tarasenko, and they got bounced in the first round.
And neither are there in New York.
Neither are there.
So I'm in no business in getting into that kind of deal. And I think Barry Trotz is a smarter general manager than that. All right, 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get into your questions for Dmase in 30 minutes. We'll take your calls and take your texts. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as Vanderbilt baseball takes on Louisiana in the 2024 Astros Foundation College Classic with a pregame at 2:50 and first pitch at 3:05. Coverage also available on 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Caroline, Willy, Dmase, 1025, 1063, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. We'll get to Ask Dmase in 30 minutes. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get your calls. We'll get your texts. All of your questions for Dmase. So TD was on with Jared Stillman yesterday on Stillman & Company for the TD Power Hour. And, of course, Teron Davenport is in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. And we know that the Combine, or really kind of the Senior Bowl, is really the start of talking season. And the Combine really starts to ramp up talking season, or maybe cloak and dagger season, as we can affectionately call it. Like we said earlier this week when we heard from Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan at the Combine, they were talking a whole lot about receivers. That begged the question, okay, are they going to take a receiver? Or does that mean they're taking a tackle because they're talking so much about the receivers? Cloak and dagger season, deception season, lying season. That is what we are very much so in as far as the NFL calendar goes. There's a lot of talking, a whole lot of gossip, a whole lot of tea, if you will, that is spilled at the NFL Combine. So what kind of tea has TD been hearing at the NFL Combine? This was TD on the TD Power Hour yesterday.
Obviously they got a preview, right, of what the Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow connection would be like because they saw it in college. So it is a different grading scale, so to speak. But I do know that, you look at Keon Coleman, Florida State. He's a guy I would keep an eye on. I don't think at 7, but I think, in that bottom half of the first round, or kind of at the top of the second, if he should be there. The Chiefs at 32, the 49ers at 31. Like, those are areas where I could see there being a possibility that they go get him if he's not there. But, that's not coming from the team itself. It's coming from other, people that I've spoken to out here. So don't be surprised there. But, yeah, offensive line early, Fashanu or Joe are there, I would imagine they would be the pick. And you are right as far as the viewing neighbors, Dmase as elite, like super elite. And that's not to say that they don't think that they're good players, but Jamar Chase is super elite. He himself is probably the best. I think he's a better prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr. So, that just kind of speaks to where a lot of people are with him, when you talk about Dmase and neighbors.
We know that things change. I think receivers work out today at the Combine. So we still have the Combine. We still have pro days. We still have a long time to go throughout the pre-NFL draft process. But what Brian Callahan told us was, all things equal, we went with the elite touchdown scorer. But that's not necessarily the case, or might not necessarily be the case, that all things will be equal in this year's NFL draft. Like TD says there, Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors might not be those elite touchdown scorers or such special players like Jamar Chase was coming out of college and obviously has been in the NFL. So just based off of kind of what TD has been hearing, it sounds like early left tackle, maybe with the 7th overall pick, addressing receiver later, maybe with the 38th overall pick. TD brings up Keon Coleman, the receiver from Florida State, which I know Dmase probably just kills you that he used to wear a green and white uniform and then went to Florida State. If that is how things pan out, left tackle, Fashanu or Joe Alt at 7, maybe a Keon Coleman or an A.D. Mitchell or a Brian Thomas at 38. We have any problems with that?
If indeed they can't get their tackle, that's what you're saying. Or you're saying if
they address tackle at 7.
Oh, okay.
And
they
address
tackle.
Receiver later in the draft with maybe that second tier of receivers below Odunze, Neighbors, and
it depends on. I think there are enough good wide receivers out there in college football. If you have him ranked high enough, after you've went and addressed one position, which is the left tackle, you get in the second round, and one of these receivers, whether it's Keon Coleman or someone else, if you got them ranked on your board that high, then why not go get them? Unless there's a cornerback that you rank higher and he's sitting there waiting for you, a guy that probably projected to be a late first rounder, and for some reason he gets out of the first round and you have him right there, in the second round, kind of sort of like the Derrick Henry deal where many predicted him as a first rounder, possibly late first rounder. Well, he got out of the first round. There was an opportunity for you to take him, and you took him because he probably was the highest ranked guy on your board. And you didn't think he would be around that late in the draft. Well, if you come back around and you draft your tackle, and there's a receiver there, but then there's a corner there, which one do you have ranked higher? Because they're both are a position of need. Do we take the pass catcher to, help complement D-Hop and Traylon or whoever else and helps the quarterback moving forward? Do we take that guy, or do we take the cornerback that's rated a little bit higher that is also a position of need? That's what they got to decide. But no, I'm not. If they choose to take a receiver in the second round, then that's because it's a position of need, and it would be a good player that you have ranked in the second round.
I think that's the important thing to consider is year to year. Let's just rank, let's say, the top 3 receivers this year as opposed to the top 3 receivers in just pick another year. The ratings of those 3 guys could vary a lot, right? Based on the same scout's evaluation. That's where you have to make sure that you're calculating that accordingly and not just saying, we want the best receiver out there. We're going to take the best receiver that's there, because that receiver may not be graded nearly as high as the third best receiver 5 years ago. And I think that's the point that Teron was making with Chase. Like, Chase was an exceptional guy. When you're choosing him over Odunze, it was just Chase was that good that they're like, man, I just cannot pass up on that. I don't know how they feel about the guys in the first round that could be there at 7 now, but it sounds like Teron's not quite as wild on them right now.
That's what it sounds like, and that's why when we were talking with Brian Callahan earlier this week, I asked him, you saw Ja'Marr Chase as an elite touchdown scorer. Are these guys elite touchdown scorers? And, of course, he didn't answer that question. He said, I haven't watched the college tape. I don't know how much I buy that.
Cap.
But, yeah, okay, sure. But if you don't view them as elite touchdown scorers and you view Fashanu, Joe Alt, whoever, as elite left tackles, then that's the position that you go if you can feel like you can get a really solid player, a solid receiver in the second round.
The trick is, what if the highest rated player you have is not a tackle or wide receiver? That's when you really get into a dilemma, right?
But if that's the highest rated player you have, take them. Like, what if it's
well, that's where we talked
Dallas
about Bowers or
yeah.
Other players that could be there that you're not thinking that, because every Titans fan's like, man, we've got to fix that offensive line, or man, we could use a receiver. But that would be the tough part, I think. And I don't know how they grade the board right now.
And this team just needs good players. And I know they need a left tackle.
There's plenty of places you could find a place, for a great player.
Yeah, I am just in the market for good players. But another thing that TD touched on with Jared, he said it's likely that even if the Titans do go left tackle with the first pick in the first round and they go receiver in the second round, receiver's still probably a position of need that you're going to have to address in free agency. So who is that? Will Levis was on RG3's podcast, actually, of all things. I was giving it a listen. He was talking about Mike Vrabel and how excited he is about Brian Callahan. But RG3 asked him about his interest in a free agent receiver. This is what Will Levis had to say.
Your new offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz. He had a guy that's a free agent wideout, right now, named Calvin Ridley. So Nick understands like how dynamic a guy like Calvin Ridley is and how he can add to the passing game. And I'm sure there might be some belief that maybe, just maybe, Calvin Ridley would want to come and follow the guy that called plays for him to be a 1,000-yard receiver last year. What would your pitch be for Calvin Ridley to come to Tennessee Titans?
He's definitely an awesome player, and I got to see it firsthand, him torch us a couple times. And we definitely are. It would be cool to have someone of his caliber out there playing. And I'm sure that he's comfortable with Holtz, and he obviously had his best year, with him last year. And it'd be cool to definitely play with him. And who knows, maybe link up in the offseason, get some balls in the air, and see what we can make happen. But it's not me to make the decision.
I understand.
I don't really have any pull, but I don't care if I'm never have a shot at playing with him. I'd still like to throw him some balls. That'll be fun.
I don't know if I put that
like
on
did they have like 5
was that a robot or AI?
A couple of Celsius with the Ryan Tannehill stash?
I may have been recording that clip on 1.5 speed because that's how I was listening to it.
Goodness.
So that That's on me, but we get the gist.
We get it.
We
I
get
still
the
got.
gist.
I do that sometimes. Sometimes you got limited time, right? You got to hear what they're saying. Let's get to it.
I got a lot of things to listen to. I got places to go, people to see. 1.5 speed,
Things to do,
people.
man. Come on.
You gotta hurry it up. But obviously, Nick Holtz was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, passing coordinator with the Jags this past year. Calvin Ridley with the Jags this past year. One thing that I've noticed with Will Levis, he has fabulous media training. Like, he is not going to give you anything. He's going to give you the right answer, the political answer, the quarterback answer of course, he's a great player, but it's not up to me, and I trust the organization. But I'll translate that into quarterbackese. Of course he wants Calvin Ridley. What
More pass catchers,
wouldn't?
the better.
I'd love to have Jerry Rice and Calvin Ridley and Steve Largent and Wes Welker. Like, just go down the list. I'll take them all.
Give me every receiver that excels at catching the football.
Tyreek Hill, I'll take him.
We'll take them all.
Who wouldn't?
But
I
like,
mean,
what is Ridley really going to be out there?
Yeah, there is speculation that they may not be able to sign him back because of, I guess, because of the structure of their salary cap.
Huh.
They may not be able to sign him back.
Like, he could be a true cap casualty?
He could be a guy that it's not necessarily that, but he's going to command close to $30 million.
Huh. Okay.
So, are you going to pay him close to $30 million if you're Jacksonville? I mean, I don't know. He was one of your better receivers that you had on your team. He was the most explosive receiver after gets hurt. Who got hurt for Jacksonville?
Christian Kirk?
Yeah, Christian Kirk. After Christian Kirk got hurt, he became like your most valuable weapon in the passing game. So he's going to command anywhere, I think, north of 25 per year. 23. What did T. Higgins sign his tender for?
Well, see, T. Higgins is on the tag.
Yeah, how much did he sign his franchise tag for?
It's in the 20. I think it's in the low 20s. Mm-hmm. So I think that'll be different.
Mm-hmm. I'm just comparing that one. Like, okay, the franchise tag is an average of the top 5 or 3 at the position, and they average it out.
I don't know why 26 is coming to my mind.
Mm-hmm. But I think it would be north of $25 million that you would have to pay him, and I'm thinking closer to 30 than anything.
30 steep. I don't think Calvin Ridley's a $30 million receiver.
He's young. To me, Calvin Ridley is a damn good receiver.
Is he? He's almost 30.
He's been out a year, so you got to take that away. It took a year off.
No mileage.
Exactly.
29.
No
Car's
mileage.
been in the garage
exactly.
for a year.
He's been in the garage for a year. He hasn't had an injury.
Tyreek Hill is 30, and I don't think Calvin Ridley's Tyreek Hill.
No, he's not, but Tyreek Hill is going to command over 30, close damn near 40. If
40?
A young Tyreek Hill, like if Tyreek Hill, after, say he.
Like Justin Jefferson, for example.
Okay, that's more of a comperable.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, because he's young. Justin Jefferson is going to reset the market. Justin Jefferson is going to get close to $40 million per year on his deal. So if you're giving Justin Jefferson close to $40 million, I would say it would be closer to $30 million for Calvin Ridley. I'm not saying that Calvin Ridley is Jefferson, no way, no how. But he does have a skill set that the Titans are missing and that other teams around the league are missing. He has speed. He can get down the field. He catches the ball really well. Good body control. These are things that teams are looking for, and he's proven he can play in this league at a high level. It baffled me why the Titans didn't make a move for him when they had a chance to, because Jacksonville got him for the cheap.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. You've liked Ridley.
I've always liked him coming out of college.
But I asked myself the question: if he's like, Jacksonville should be in a window where they're trying to win. They should be saying, hey, last year, I don't know what happened down the stretch, but we messed that up, but we should have a good team.
Yeah.
Why would they – my first question would be like, why would they let a guy like that go? I know you're saying he's good, but that's why the $30 million, they clearly don't think he's worth that, because they should be able to – now, I'm sure they're starting to get a cap crunch like some teams have.
I think it has to do with the deal with Atlanta. that they traded a third-round pick to Calvin Ridley, and I think that in his contract there was a clause of if he gets signed to that next deal, that third-round pick turns into a second-round pick.
Okay.
So I think it's a less of a cap issue because he's only making $11 million against the cap. Like if your number 1 or number 2 receivers making $11 million against the cap, like.
But that was just a pickup from Atlanta. That contract was a pickup from Atlanta, right?
Yes, and he would be making. He would be assigned to that new contract.
Yeah, new deal.
But I don't
And
think
then
that
they're
your
gonna
deal
play
is going
more
to
of the
jump
market
from
value.
11 to 30.
But that what I'm saying is that was a contract that Atlanta has signed him to. Because Jacksonville, at least I may be wrong on this one, but did Jacksonville sign him to a new deal? I don't think they signed him to a new deal. I just think they sort of picked up the contract because you got to remember Atlanta didn't cut him. They just put him.
They traded.
Yeah, they traded him, but they put them on the exempt list, so they still had his rights, his contract, and everything. And then when they traded for him, that contract just went to Jacksonville, so Jacksonville didn't have to sign a new contract. Am I understanding that wrong? That's what
It
I'm saying.
would be his 5th-year option that he played under. I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly, he would play under his 5th, or either a 5th-year option or a tag this past season because he played 4 years with the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And then that year that he was out, and then this next year, and he was a first-round pick, so he would have had that 5th-year option.
So when I'm saying
contract froze.
Yeah,
for the 1 year when he was suspended.
I believe so.
Okay.
So the $11 million has no bearings on what you got to pay me moving forward, other than what you said. If they re-sign him to any deal, then it goes from being a 3rd-round pick to a 1st-round pick, right? 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, so that would have been a conditional.
And
third.
that's why Jacksonville is so hesitant to sign him back because they don't want to give up that 2nd-round pick.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would be
Still
in
sounds a
on
little
Calvin
expensive.
Ridley.
$30 million.
I don't think it would be 30.
I'm telling you, it's going to be close to $30 million.
I don't because just
Price
right
is going
now.
up for some of these guys.
Yeah, it's not
Tyreek
about.
Hill makes
it's-
30,
I
right?
know, but you
And
got to
he's at the
understand
top of the market?
when Tyreek Hill signed that deal.
No, I
that was-
know,
yeah.
I know, but he was making top of the market money. That
Yes.
was the richest contract that a receiver had ever signed.
Exactly.
I don't think that this next receiver contract with Jefferson is going to jump 10 million.
Oh yeah,
It'll jump.
Oh yeah, it is.
Why?
Because the way they are not letting Justin Jefferson get out of that building.
I agree.
He's going
They
to
would be dumb if they did.
He's going to grossly reset the receiver market. That's why guys like Chase probably don't want to sign right now.
Oh,
who
for
else
sure.
is out
I totally
there?
understand
There are other
that.
guys out there that probably don't want to sign a huge contract because they know Justin Jefferson is the guy that's going to reset the market.
And then whenever Jamar Chase signs, he's going to reset the
Exactly.
market 100%, totally. I just don't know if it's going to be as drastic of a jump of 30 is the market to now it's 40.
It's going to be
in
close to it,
2
I'm telling you.
years.
It's going to be because it's not everybody else. It's Minnesota. Minnesota don't want him getting out of the building. And if we got to pay him close to, let's just say north of 35. If we got to pay him north of 35, then that's what we're going to do. If we don't want him to get out the building, which it seems Minnesota don't want him getting out the building.
Oh, and if I'm Minnesota, I'm not letting Justin Jefferson walk. I just don't know if there's a team in the NFL that would pay him close to 40.
There's
Because
always
Justin
one
Jefferson's a hell of
team.
a player.
It's always one team. That's all it takes.
So the theme here that I hone in on is if the rate that you got to pay an established free agent wide receiver is going up, which it is, whether it's 30
gonna go
million or
up.
25.
Yeah.
Then you have to consider the other variables. How does that guy fit in with your offense? And Ridley's a talent for sure. I can buy the T. Higgins idea, maybe not this year with the tag, but maybe next year when he probably hits the market. I know there's a relationship there. Callahan knows that he's a fit, knows how to use him. That, to me, is a safer investment a little bit. There's always risk, as opposed to throwing money at a talent that's been in 2 different spots. He's got the connection with Holtz, I know, but I don't know. That seems steep. That's a lot on the line. And is your roster ready to win? The biggest reason would be a young quarterback needs weapons. But what do you do with D-Hop then? Do you try to trade him or
No, I think you just you keep
so
both
you're just
of them.
spending all your money on wide receivers and not addressing? You're gonna.
It would be
you only
one
have
wide
so many.
receiver. It would just be one wide receiver, not all.
You would draft a receiver. You would pick up a Calvin Ridley, and then you would have a first or second round receiver.
And then where
Calvin Ridley and
then
DeAndre
where does
Hopkins.
Burks? Like we're blocking Burks.
Well, I think if they got
Calvin
Ridley,
Burks.
if they got Calvin Ridley, I can't see them then unless in the second round, like I said before, they have a receiver ranked high than say another position at need. If they were to sign a Calvin Ridley, to me receiver falls a little bit further down the line. Now hopefully I draft a tackle in the first round, then I can go back and possibly either address two positions. Either address the cornerback position, which I do think they need to address. To me, it's offensive line, cornerback, and then receiver. But you can either address the cornerback position or the inside linebacker position. One of the two you can address because now you've gotten your receiver in free agency who you think is going to be with your team at least the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to, I think, do both.
Yeah.
Address the receiver position in the draft and address the receiver position in free agency. They're going to have to pay for a receiver.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. Next, get those questions in for Dmase. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, Dmase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Ask Dmase. Get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric is on the line with a question for Dmase. What's up, Eric?
Hey, before I get to this, Dmase, I got a joke for you. This is one I heard recently. You might like this. So, what is the difference between love and marriage?
Al Bundy? No. No, because that's old love and marriage.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, love is blind, but marriage is an eye-opener.
Oh. Oh, this is what I done got into. Okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I thought you might like that. Anyway, my question is this, and you guys may have already discussed this, I don't know, but I saw on the call this morning, it appears that a lot of people thought this was coming, that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to release Kevin Byard. And I'm not saying he's coming back to the Titans. I don't think that's going to happen. But do you see anybody else maybe taking a chance of picking him up, or do you think there's a possibility nobody does, or he just himself may decide to retire? Just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Guys, good to talk to you. Guys, y'all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call,
Appreciate
Eric.
it.
We've got about 15 texts in the text
That's
line.
it, Kevin
Should
Byard.
the Titans go
Yeah.
get Kevin Byard?
It's up to Kevin Byard, I think, in regards to his play moving forward. I'm not sure he's going to be in the first wave of free agency signed. He may not even be in the second wave, because I heard this was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, watching one of the sports shows. And I think Tim may have said it when he was on ESPN. When you get cut once, it's easier for them to cut you again. It's true. Once a team cuts you, it's easier. Whatever next team you go to, it's a little bit easier for that team to cut you as well.
That next team?
That next team to cut you. If Philadelphia end up cutting him, releasing him, and they have troubles in the secondary, the next team is probably thinking like he's lost. He hasn't fell off the cliff, but it's damn sure close to it. So other teams may look at him as a sort of not the first wave, not the second wave, but he's more so of that July signing right before camp, or maybe after, as someone gets hurt and then you sign. Maybe that's and maybe Kevin may do it that way too. Like, listen, I don't see anything out there, because now he's in a great position as a player. He's made his money. He has his security. Now he can just sit back and sort of wait on a team that he wants to potentially go to. He's not in a rush to sign. You know, he's going to go through the first wave, probably the second wave. Now I'm just sitting back, okay, which team may need a veteran safety? A guy gets hurt in camp. Now I have an opportunity. You will be the top on everybody's list because your knowledge of the game, you still have something left, and you can help a locker room from a veteran standpoint, a leadership standpoint. So he may be that July guy, August guy that gets signed because someone got hurt. And then again, it could be up to, like I said, it could be solely up to him. Like, listen, I'm not doing anything. I'm not in a rush to do anything. Hell, I can retire if I want to. So I think this period, in this phase of his career, a lot of it is up to him in regards to, where do I want to sign? There are only going to be a few teams, but amongst those few teams, which one would I like to be on? One that gives me an opportunity to win a Super Bowl.
Looks pretty smart that they traded him at this point. Because
exactly.
When we were talking about this a year ago, I know there was a lot of shock to Titans fans. Like, well, you asked him to take a pay cut?
Because the Titans were going to do the same thing.
This would have happened to the Titans, right, if they'd have kept him. He's hitched to that contract. It's a high dollar figure to pay a safety. But now that he's cut, and he can sign a new deal, now he could be a bargain for somebody.
Exactly.
That for the right team. That's what he's got going for him.
Yeah, there will be a team out there that'll sign him to, maybe a 2-year deal that you can get out of after a year.
It'll be strictly a 1-year deal.
It's not going to be an overwhelming dollar amount because he is.
Could be a nice veteran
piece
to somebody.
Of his career.
You don't have to put the whole defense on his shoulders anymore. He could be a role player almost. a nice role player.
As much as I love Kevin Byard, the Titans don't need to go out and re-sign Kevin Byard.
No.
If he wants to retire here, you can have that conversation. That's fine. But the Titans don't need to go re-sign players that they already traded because you don't need to go down that road.
You drafted him, and I get it, but you don't need to try to re-sign him.
Matthew in Nashville, Texan, says, I think all of us can agree that the NFL Network and NFL scouts who haven't seen Joe Milton before will all lose their minds this weekend, thus creating an enormous hype wave for the draft. My question is, agree or disagree that it would be foolish for any NFL GM to waste a draft pick on Joe, given his wildly inaccurate and poor decision-making at UT? I can't tell if this is a Vanderbilt fan or an angry Tennessee fan.
It could be both. Would I be looking to sign him with my first 5 picks? No. Like first 5 rounds. If I have 1 pick per round, no, I'm not looking to sign him. But he could be. He's a project. That's what he is. He has some tools you cannot teach. But he has deficiencies in areas that a guy that had been in college that long and was given every opportunity to be a starter and you couldn't. That tells me those things that you should have been working on, and I'm not saying he wasn't, you didn't get better at them. That team looked bad with him at quarterback at times. I mean, really bad. Do you take a flyer on him in the 6th round? Yeah, there's a possibility. There's some GM out there is going to say, man, that kid can throw the ball through the gym. Let's take him. Let's send him on the bench for about 2-3 years, develop him, and then see what we have. Because if he works out, everybody's cheering. But if he doesn't, it was a 6-7 round pick. So let it go, The
most telling thing for me, yesterday I was talking with someone who hosts a draft radio show, like does this for a living. I asked him about Joe Milton. He said, well, he has a beautiful smile. I was like, okay.
Okay, I'll pass on.
He's got a great personality. You said all you needed to say. Got it, understood. And he does have beautiful teeth. I will give him that.
Did they say he had oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's all they can come up with?
He's a beautiful smile, great guy, great personality.
I just would be surprised if he got drafted. I think
would you be surprised if he got drafted?
A little bit. I just think he'd be
Willy,
one of the
considering
first
some of the people that have gotten drafted.
That's a fair point. But I see guys like the Titans have drafted a couple here. I can't remember one of them's name. One of them's name was Falk, I think.
Yeah,
and the other was McDonald, right? They got drafted and never made the team. They got cut the very first training camp. Like you took a draft pick. You took a draft pick on this guy, and he's not even making the team. I can see that happening with Milton. But if he's a free agent, then I'm giving him a call and saying, come on down. But I don't know if I would want to take the throw at the dartboard on my limited tosses while the draft's going on.
Well, okay, if you are
a free agent, that's another story.
Okay, if you are a team that has, in the 7th round, you have 10 picks in all 7, like you got 10 picks in this year's NFL draft. 7th round, you still got a pick or 2 left. Y'all wouldn't take a chance?
That's not a very glowing endorsement. If
but
I get 10 picks, I might think about taking you in the 7th round.
But what I'm saying is this.
No, I hear you.
If I have limited picks, then more than likely I am not going to draft him because I only have limited picks and I need to get some guys, whether they're special team guys or not, I need to get them in my building. But if I have 9 picks and he's sitting there, okay.
He's also about to turn 24.
Let's take a flyer on him.
But the 2 or 3 year thing, then we're talking he's 26, 27.
But that don't apply to quarterbacks anymore.
I don't know.
The age thing really don't apply.
I think it should. It doesn't, but I think it should. Like Hendon Hooker, how long is it going to be before he gets a chance to play?
28.
He's going to be 38 years old. He's almost ready. He's 38.
Knee's almost
knee is good.
I think there's going to be a general manager that talks himself into Milton because he's got an absolute cannon of an arm.
Did you see him throw that orange, guys? Come on, we got to draft him.
Freaking orange. The number of Tennessee fans that got all mad at me because I said, who gives a crap how far you can throw an orange? They're like, well, you're just a hater. I'm like, oh, is he going to be throwing oranges for a living? Like, no.
We throwing throwing oranges in games now?
Yeah, like, is that what he's going to do? Then great. Yeah, sign him to $1 million deal because he can launch an orange 120 yards downfield. But there's going to be a GM that talks themselves into it that, hey, we can work with the arm. When it's 4th and 32, I know exactly who I'm going to. I'm going to Joe Milton because he's the one that can lob the ball downfield. And I do think that there are kind of two different ways that GMs might look at the 24-year-old quarterbacks that are coming out. One, it would be, well, are we going to re-sign him to his second deal when he's 28, 29 years old? Or you could look at it like he's 24 and he's taken a lot of meaningful snaps at the college level and he could be ready. I wouldn't do it, but general managers do crazy things.
Yeah.
More Ask Dmase coming up next. Caroline, Willy, Dmase. Hey, tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow as MTSU basketball takes on Sam Houston on the road. Pre-game at 7:30 p.m. Tip-off at 8 with coverage also available on 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 93.3classichits.com. Ask Dmase. Get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's get back into your questions. One texter texts in and asks Dmase, are the 2 offensive linemen that got released by the Rams worth bringing in?
You know, ironically, we were just talking about the center that got released. He was a Spartan. So listen, if you put a Spartan on your team, Tennessee, you're bound to do well. I mean, it's just history.
You will get no complaints from Dmase.
History says it. Whether it's Lorenzo White, myself, why am I forgetting the left tackle, right tackle? He was right tackle, but for Cleveland.
Jack Conklin.
Jack Conklin. So whether it's Lorenzo White, myself, or Jack Conklin, when you have a Spartan on your team starting, you're going to do good. So you
Just something about those green and whites.
Absolutely. So I guess that's something that, you need to kick the tires on because you need a center. I think you need a veteran center.
Brian Allen is the one
that
you're touching on. And
he was a damn good center in state, too. He was one of the rocks on that offensive line during his years. I think he might have been a starter his freshman year, if I recall. But he's a good player. They had, but he has dealt with injury, so you got to take that into consideration if you're signing him. But they're going to need a guy that has played a lot of snaps. He was the starting center for that Super Bowl team for the Rams. A guy that's played a lot of snaps. And a guy, frankly, that's bigger than what you had at that position.
Well, that's not really the highest threshold.
Yeah, you're right, because he was about 215. Aaron Brewer was about 215 pounds.
Do you remember that picture? I think Derrick Henry took them all out to dinner in Vegas when he was wearing his sex pants. And I was like, who is that? Who is that guy?
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's Aaron Brewer. He's like the same size as the running backs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, they need a bigger center. They do need a bigger center. That doesn't wear sex pants.
Well, Derrick Henry was wearing the sex pants.
I thought you were going to talk about. I thought you were talking about.
Did that mean skinny
and the
pants?
Sex Panther.
Yeah. Does that mean skinny jeans?
No, it was a pair of tacky cargo pants that said sex all over it.
For real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I thought you were just saying because they were tight and no, but they actually said that on there.
All over it.
Oh Lord!
Good Lord, boy. All over it. But long story short, I saw a picture of Aaron Brewer. I didn't even know who it was because I was like, who is that? Like a backup running back? No, it was Aaron Brewer, and he was so small.
Yeah, that tells you need a bigger center.
Now this is a sad question, but could you be wearing the sex pants and Sex Panther from Anchorman? How 80%
of the time. It works
yeah,
every time.
And how do those percentages change when you add the sex pants?
It has to go up.
Oh, it's got to go up. It's got to go up. Analytics department, let's look into that one.
It is not subliminal messaging there. From
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh, man, that would get people's attention.
Yeah, but going out and getting another center, you have to do it now. What guy you go out and get, it's determined by who's out there at free agency. Because, again, whether, you get him now, and I think Rand talked about this, or Rand or Brian, there's 3 waves to free agency. There's the initial free agency, and then there's another period in there where you can sign guys. And then, that June, mid-June, late June into July, then there are going to be other guys that get cut that you can then bring on your team. Good players, not guys that are getting cut because they can't play, but guys that are getting cut because maybe they are a little bit older and making too much money.
That was something that Chad Brinker said philosophically he likes. He says, I don't want to overpay at for the first day of free agency, first wave, that often. I don't want to have to rely on that. He said Costco. He says the cap casualties, we are going to look heavy into there. So there's Allen, and I don't know if this is the other guy that the texter is referring to, Joe Noteboom, who was scheduled to count like $20 million against the cap. So he would be a big hit against it. So that he could be a cap casualty there. I don't know much about his game.
Because I know Brian Allen lost his job, and he was an expensive backup.
Yeah.
His team cannot afford expensive backups. This team can't afford backups, especially on the offensive line. We saw how that went this past season. I'm willing to dish out the cash for experienced veteran offensive linemen. Obviously not too old. Brian Allen thinks he's like 28. But potential free agent offensive linemen, I'm willing to dish out some cash for. That's an important position, and we saw what happens when you go in the cheap on the offensive line. Another,
yes,
and it's not pretty.
No, it's not.
It's up the budget there.
Yeah.
Ben Texan says, my question is, was there a team in the draft process that said they were going to draft you but didn't?
I'm trying to think because I talk with Pittsburgh a lot, talk with Philadelphia. So in my mind, and with talking with them, I thought it was going to be one of those two teams, Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. And obviously it wasn't. But again, I go back to sometimes teams don't have to talk to you. And they see you on the board and they got you ranked high at that particular position and they draft you. And I'm sure that's probably what happened with the Titans with me. At that, in that round, at that number, the 98th pick, I was the highest guy on their board at that particular time, and they drafted me because, again, I never had a conversation with them ever.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I never had no, I didn't. I'm trying to sit and think. No, I know even during the combine, I talked with the Giants because I remember going to the room with Tom Coughlin for a minute. I think he was with the Giants no, he wasn't with the Giants. Whoever he was with, I ended up talking with him for a minute. And then, like I said, Philly and Pittsburgh because there were ties with Pittsburgh and then Philly. But the Titans, no. Not that I remember anyway.
Another texter texts in, says, Dmase, could you work your number 7 into getting Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, and Xavier Legette, the number 30, 38, and number 70 ranked wide receivers?
It depends on who wants to move up to that 7th pick. And the only reason they're going to move up to that 7th pick is a quarterback that they see that they want that has dropped, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I don't expect either one of them really to drop to this, to drop to a position where the Titans are sitting at 7 and one of those quarterbacks are there. It can happen. A lot of things have happened. Some teams have talked themselves into taking a player. So if one of those quarterbacks are there, May or Daniels, or J.J. McCarthy's there and somebody's talking themselves into J.J. McCarthy, then yeah, if they want to move out, if you want that player so bad, then these are the things that you have to give me in return. I moved down in the draft, but I'm not moving too far because I still want to be able to get my guy that I need and guys that I need at other positions moving, as I move down the draft.
I also don't I don't know if you need to take 3 receivers.
No, you don't need to take 3 receivers. I don't think after Neighbors, however you rank them, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, Adunze, Neighbors, Harrison, Adunze, however you rank them, they all will be gone about time the 10th pick hit, I believe. I think after that, there is a little drop off where you could potentially get those guys. Now, what you got to worry about with Keon Coleman, and because their quarterback did get hurt until the last 2 weeks of the season, right?
It was a bowl. No, I take that back. It was not the bowl game. It was the game before the Florida game.
Exactly.
So the second to last game of the season.
Absolutely. So you had your quarterback in place basically the whole season. He only had 2 100-yard games. And, he made some highlight catches, some unreal catches, but I don't think the consistency was there. And this is what teams are going to start looking at now with guys like Keon Coleman. Big frame, guy that can go up and get the ball, a good player, but you had your quarterback. Why were your numbers not as consistent as they should have been? Especially compared to the top 3 receivers that are going to go in this year's draft.
Fair question.
Yeah, why were your numbers, so inconsistent?
We'll get to the last one quickly. Lester from Hermitage has a question for Dmase. What's up, Lester?
Oh, man, it's Weston Hermitage. I think I said my name too weird whenever he was putting my name down.
Sorry about that, Wes. Go ahead.
Correct you. No. I had to say that because, on Fridays I come in strong. So I got a good one for you, D-Mate.
Okay.
So I live stream a lot. I meet people from all over the world. And I've got a large group of friends that are not American. And I had my best friend come up to me and said, I really appreciate that you use certain Spanish words whenever you speak to us. And, we just wanted to let you know that you saying grande just hits us different. And he told me that it just means a lot to them. That went over your head, D-Man?
Yeah, that one did go over my head.
That's not even what grande means.
Yeah.
He said he really appreciates me saying grande in all my sentences because it means a lot to them.
Oh,
anyway,
yes. Okay, now I got it.
Yeah, we tried to slip that in there, man. It's all good. Not all of them.
No, I got it now.
But my question for you is, I keep hearing people say, we have to draft an offensive lineman, and we have to draft a wide receiver, but we don't want to overpay. But the way I look at it is we're going to have to overpay in free agency regardless. So my question is it better to overpay for an offensive lineman and draft a wide receiver, or draft an offensive lineman and overpay, or vice versa? Like, which one is better off?
Oh, man, that's a
Thanks
good
for your call,
question.
Wes.
Thanks,
That is a good
Wes.
Because those are two expensive positions,
Yeah.
especially the way the market's going for wide receivers.
Okay, let's put it like this, because I think it was Tim. We had Tim on. It may have not have been this go around, but one, and he talked about the hit rate the comparables as far as hit rate. Yeah, offensive linemen, receivers. What is the hit rate on all of those positions? And it seems like, if I do remember, he said the hit rate for receivers are a little bit low in the first round. So if you can, unless it's just one of these three guys that you believe are no-brainers, you take them. But then outside of that, you can still get that receiver in the second round. You don't have to reach and get him in the first round, because more than likely he will not be a hit. So why waste the first round pick on that guy if he's not a top 2 or 3 at his position? So with that being said, I would spend the money on a receiver in free agency. A young receiver that has shown his worth in this league, 26, 27 years old. Yeah, I pay him, as opposed to, and you wouldn't have to pay, obviously, the receiver, but it's the draft pick that you would be taking. I would rather take that tackle, that offensive lineman, with the draft pick, and then if I can get a guy in the second round or third round, more preferably in the second round, wide receiver, I take him. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to spend the money in free agency to get that wide receiver that I know is going to be, more than likely, he's going to be a hit, because I've seen him over the course of a 4 or 5 year period.
Right. And it could be different every year.
Exactly. Every year is different. And that's a good question, because some teams sort of, some teams, like I've always said, some teams value positions. Well, all teams value positions different. Titans may not value the receiver position as other people do. They may start doing it now because the new change with the head coach and the GM, but the history says they don't value receivers in regards to the price that other teams do.
Appreciate everyone for getting those questions in for Dmase. But coming up next, it's like a change in college football happens every 13 seconds, and if you don't keep up with it, you're going to be caught behind. And there's another change, and I feel some type of way about it. We'll discuss coming up next. Caroline, Willy, Dmase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, Dmase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. So we know this year there's a 12-team college football playoff. And I know a whole lot of people feel a whole lot of different ways about it. But there's even more conversations. This came out about a week or so ago, that there were early conversations about a potential 14-team playoff. Now, one thing that I've learned, specifically with college football, is when these things start to get out of early conversations, maybe this might happen, that means it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So it just came out a couple days ago that they're discussing, the college football playoff, the college football playoff committee, has been discussing what a 14-team playoff model would look like. And I just find it hilarious that we have yet to even have the season start of the first 12-team playoff, that we now are talking about a model for a 14-team playoff, which should surprise nobody, because wasn't it fishy when the 12-team playoff was only for 2 years, until 2026? Is that not a little fishy? Is that not a little raise some eyebrows about what's going to happen in the next 2 years rather? So just initial thoughts on the 14-team playoff. Really seems like it's inevitable starting the 2026 season.
You set that up really well, and my first thought, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, but one time, Peter Laviolette came in to the media thing to talk to the announcers, and he had gotten a haircut. And it was a little shorter than he normally gets it. And everybody was giving him a hard time about it. And he said, I don't know what happened. He goes, I don't know what happened. He goes, we went from A to Z. Like they cut it too short. He was saying, we went straight from A to Z. He said, what happened to B, C, D? That's what I feel like is happening here. Can we just try 12 and see how that goes first? 12 was a lot. 12 is a lot.
It's a lot
now
of
we're already
teams.
on 14. It's a lot of teams. It's a lot of games. It's complicated. I think 12 is if you're going to do it, 12 makes sense. 14 is very complicated.
What was the
it's
reasoning
like a conference.
for 14?
What do you think?
Money.
Yep.
14 is
mean,
too
bingo.
many.
I just get
Even people who love playoffs. If you're going to go to 14, why not go to 16? That at least you have 8. Then you have a sweet 16.
See,
why stop at 14?
It's like a gateway
We're going
drug.
from A to Z.
14 is the gateway drug to 16. Because
And
we
then
all know,
16,
right?
8. I
Next
think
thing,
ultimately
32. I mean,
I think ultimately
64.
64. We're gonna have college football playoff all year round, and now we're gonna have 64 teams.
I think ultimately there's a possibility they want to get up to, because what you play, how many games in the regular season? 12, and then your conference game 13. Then you got the 2 playoff games, 14, 15.
Well, that's in a 4-team playoff.
Yeah,
so
but my thing
more.
is, I think they want to get up to 18 games. Where if you're playing that's a NFL schedule. You get up to 18 games. So whoever gets in the championship, when it's all said and done, you have played 18 games.
That's a lot of games.
That's
a lot of football.
I mean,
you already have
really
players
not.
that say, I'm not playing in the one bowl game because I can't play in the bowl game.
It's really not 18 games isn't really a lot of games, but we're so used to the old model of just playing a certain amount of games during the season. You play, if you make it to your conference game, you play in your conference championship game, and then you play in the bowl game. We're so used to that. But in actuality, even if you throw in the bowl, the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine game, and all these other bowl games, that they have, these kids end up playing, close to 18 games. Not everybody, but at least the seniors, let's say that, guys that are moving on to the draft. They end up playing close to 18 games. I do believe they want to get to a point where they're playing 18 games so they can monetize every game that they play.
Honestly, I don't hate it. I don't hate playoff expansion because
let's just talk about 4. Let's 12 first. Let's do 12 first.
Well, how the season is longer.
The season is longer, and I heard Robbie talking about this when the initial Robbie Stanley, when the initial conversations were coming out. He was like, "Can't we just see how a 12-team playoff goes?" I'm going to tell you how it's going to go. It's going to be wildly successful. Millions and millions and millions of people are going to watch it. And there's going to be a lot of money that is made for ESPN and the SEC and the Big Ten. And it's going to be great.
And it's going to be it's going to be a lot of money paid for the NIL, because then they're going to start working out deals where, okay, let's put a clause in here. If I make it to the championship game as a quarterback or as a wide receiver, I get X amount of dollars.
It very well could be. And if they have smart agents, they would do that. But I'm so sick and tired of people complaining about bowl games, about these games are stupid, these games are dumb, there's a bunch of opt-outs anyways. Well, that's the solution, is you have more games that mean something. Yeah. I'll take that 365 days a year, more football games that mean something, less opt-outs, more important games, and you get them on college campuses. Like, I'm for it. I'm for 14. I'm for 16. I was very anti-12 because it felt so sacrilegious to college football. But now I'm to the point that I'm like, look, you're doing everything for money anyway. The NFL does everything for money anyway.
It's a professional league.
Yeah. I still enjoy the game.
Well, college is a professional league.
So why should I care if it's just for money? I enjoy the games.
There used to be, like the Roy Kramers of the world, the former athletic director at Vanderbilt who became the SEC commissioner way back when. He would staunchly, even though times were moving fast, he would say, it's about the kids. It's about, there's class. There's like, but now nobody even tries to make that argument anymore.
No.
It's a
they are
mute
supposed
argument.
to still be going to school. But we're making them professionals. It's ridiculous.
But you couldn't stop it. You can't. But you couldn't stop it.
But
and now you can't stop it.
Like, most of those kids will not play professional ball. Like, and they'll be 22. Even if you get the money, you don't know what to do with it. It'll be gone. You're supposed to be setting the table for your adulthood. That is something somebody should be thinking about. Somebody.
I'm with you, but they don't
but
care
it ain't happening.
Well,
it ain't happening.
It's not going to happen.
Well, they don't care
it's sad. It's sad.
I do like the idea of more teams because that just means more meaningful games, and I'm all for that. Like, I don't want to see Georgia, Florida State 65-0.
But does it mean more meaningful games?
It's all playoff games.
But, okay, who's in the playoffs?
See, that's the thing that I don't like. And I'm glad that you brought that up because the 14-team model that was proposed just a couple of days ago, I am so against that. And I think it's so dumb. And I think it's so stupid. And I think it's so counterintuitive to what the playoff should be. In the proposed model, the SEC and the Big Ten would get three automatic bids. The ACC and the Big 12 get 2 automatic bids. Group of 5 gets 1. And that leaves 3 spots for at-large bids. I think that is moronic and is so counterintuitive to what a playoff is because how many times you get 3 auto bids for the SEC and the Big Ten?
Why should anybody that doesn't win a championship get an automatic bid?
That's a great question, Willie. You shouldn't. And why should the ACC get 2 guaranteed teams? Or the Big 12?
Why are we guaranteeing anybody? It's 14 teams.
It's
you
a
should get in
playoff.
there.
Yeah, it's a playoff.
It's a playoff. But how many times is the 4th best team in the SEC usually a better team than the 2nd best team in the ACC? A lot.
Many times.
Many times.
But that's why you have to have a system that we already sort of have in place, right? That's flawed, but it's a way to do it.
And that's why I'm against it. It's not what this new proposed model would be is an invitational. That you get invited to the playoff because you're the 2nd best team in your conference. That's not what it should be about. And I broke it down. I don't have the notes in front of me. But if you applied that model to the 2023 season this past year and accommodate for conference realignment, so Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC.
But the schedules are so unbalanced within a conference. That's what would be ridiculously hard. Like, who's to say who the 2nd best or the 3rd best is if they haven't played the same schedule? Maybe they haven't even played head-to-head.
That's kind of what exists now in the college football playoff is trying to accommodate for strength of schedule. But if you applied that model to this past season.
But why are we assigning it to a league off the bat and not just throwing everybody into the same pool and saying, let's evaluate all the teams that did not win their league?
Money is essentially what it would be. Because in this agreement, in this proposed model, the SEC and the Big Ten each would get 30% of the TV revenue from the college football playoff. So the SEC.
See, now we're really compromising the competition,
right?
But what if?
It is ridiculous, and there's even talks that Greg Sankey and the Big Ten commissioner, whose name is escaping me right now, They're campaigning for the SEC champion to get 2 byes in the playoff. Like, now it is just bending the knee to the SEC in the Big Ten. None of it is about who the best teams are. None of it is about who deserves to be there. It's all about how much can you offer me? How much can we get out of you? It is completely twisted. And what the 4-team playoff was let's get the best 4 teams in there. I'm cool with that. If you deem those the best 4 teams, then great. Those are the best 4 teams that are going to contend for a playoff regardless of which conference they play for, regardless of what school they play for. Now this is all just business. It's an invitational for which conferences are worth more to the television contracts. And I think that is so anti-college football and anti what a playoff should be. No other sport does it like that.
You know, I think it was Andy Staples. I get him mixed up sometimes with some of the other good college national writers that I like to follow that seem to try to have a pulse on this. The argument that I think it was Staples made is the NIL, while it's certainly separating the haves and have-nots, but he's saying that it does create more contenders because of the
money you can pay out.
The inability for Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State to hoard all of the players. If they're not playing and they can make more money going somewhere else, they're going to go. And it's crazy because it creates this free agency every year, which is chaos. But at the end result, this remains to be seen for me, but his theory is, with Washington being in the championship, that there will be more contenders each year. So the case in point is, where that applies here is, that's what I want to see shake out. Is in a 12 or 14 team playoff, I don't want to see the same teams every year. The whole point of having more is to give some other people a chance to pull an upset like we see in March Madness every year, where, the usual suspects most of the time make it, but on a given year, some of those all-time staples are going to get beat in the first or second round. Kentucky doesn't make it every year.
Yeah.
Whereas if you only have the 4, then it's much more likely to be Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan.
The same old, same old.
Right. I like the variety in there somewhere. So that's what I'm hoping is preserved and not saying, well, we got to have 4 SEC. We got to have 4
Well,
Big
they're
Ten.
saying they got to have 3 SEC teams,
I don't
3
like that.
Big Ten teams.
Make them earn it. If they earn it, fine.
But
don't automatically put them in there.
I also think it's kind of anti-SEC because if there was a 14-team playoff this past year, there would have been 5 SEC teams in a 14-team playoff if you just created invitations based off of the top 14 teams in the league. But under this model, there wouldn't have been 5 SEC teams who would have been in the top 14. There would have been 3, and 3 teams out of the top 14, Louisville, Oklahoma State, and Liberty would have been in a 14-team playoff just because of the conference that they play
I like
in.
that. I like having them in there. I like having them in there.
I don't need to see
I
Liberty
want the little
take
guy
on
in
Georgia. I don't need to see that. I want to see the best
Give 'em a shot.
teams.
Well, okay, but this is another thing to think. Big picture, way down the road. Do we ever get a system where you have some collective bargaining and some sensible rules of NIL where it's not a complete circus and Wild West where anybody can spend anything? Do we ever get to that? And if we do, is it more possible that a Liberty on a given year could have a team that deserves to be in there and beat an Auburn in the first
Willy,
round?
I ain't getting to that. It's
You don't think we'll ever get the
horse
employee-
is gone? It's
You
gone.
don't think the
It's
collective bargaining thing could happen someday?
Yeah, I do. I think that's closer than we
But
realize.
the Dartmouth basketball team that lost to Vanderbilt this year, they got a
yeah.
big victory, not on the court, but off the court.
But
right?
I don't think
Hey, we're not counting on our off-court victories. Victories are victories.
they're not going to, again, if they wanted to have restrictions and guidelines within NIL, they should have did it months and years ago.
Oh, of course, but we
But
know
they
that they
didn't.
can't do anything.
So
on
now
that.
players, unless they feel they are getting, the scale is tilted more their way in regards to whatever NIL rule you come up with. If it's not pro the athlete, they're not agreeing to it. They're not. And I don't think the courts are going to agree with it either. So it's gone.
There are no NIL rules.
Exactly. That's what, and I don't think they will try to implement some new ones, but if you do, it has to be pro player, pro athlete, than pro university.
Which
Well,
is where
what
the
would be
collective
more
bargaining
interesting? What would be better for the? It's hard to envision how this would work out. But in a perfect world, at least in my perfect world, I think that a league, maybe it's just the Big Ten and the SEC break away, and maybe a few others jump in there, and you have this new division where everybody in the league has to spend a floor of the NIL, and maybe there's a ceiling as well. So it's somewhat of a salary cap, or maybe there's a luxury tax like baseball where you could spend more, but then that extra money, like the Mets,
if you do that, they have to
dispersed
become
to the other
employees.
teams. Right, you'd have to have that's what you would have to have, a collectively bargained thing like that.
Now they are employees and not students.
Yeah.
Right, but I would think there's a win for the players in there if you know that not just Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State are paying big money for players, but now everybody like Vanderbilt and Wake Forest and all the other ones that want to be in this league have to pay the players a certain amount of money. So more players are getting more money. That's a victory for the players. I also think it's a victory for the fans because you feel like everybody that's in that division, if they do it right, if they spend their money right, they have good coaching and they recruit well, would have a chance. Whereas right now it's still very top-heavy. We know that there's a cross-section of teams that tend to compete every year. And then if Liberty has an undefeated season, good for them, but they got no shot.
Okay, herein lies the problem. They sort of have that sort of setup right now in regards with just the monies to the university. They have that setup where this is the money you're going to get. Everybody's getting the same amount of money, but we know that everybody don't spend that money. People hoard that money. They don't put it back into their athletic departments. So who's to say if, we set this up.
Is the player rep
we
talking.
set this
This
up.
is the player rep.
And now we got to make sure you spend 100% of it on players.
Right.
If we don't make sure you spend 100%, they're going to be putting it right back in their back pockets, building other buildings for everybody else, and not using it because you didn't stipulate you need to use it for your athletic department.
Yeah, so you need to be that guy that is
Exactly.
the head of the Players Association for this
They
new
say
CBA.
100% of this need to be on players, whether it be the facilities or what. Part of it needs to be facilities, but majority of it needs to be giving it back to those individual players. If indeed you're going to set up a model like that.
Right.
Because you're right. There needs to be a floor, even I don't think it will be a floor, but there needs to be a floor. And that ceiling, I don't know if you're going to ever get that past anybody. You can only make this certain amount. But if indeed, let's say they did do it, you got to promise these athletes, because that's what they are, men and women, that 100% will go to them, whether it be new facilities, locker rooms, or you giving it to me in my pocket.
If you're going to collectively bargain anything, I think a salary cap has to be in there. It has to
Yeah.
be. And I know the
And now I don't have to go to class.
No,
Now I don't have to go to
employee.
class. I just show up for practice.
You're an employee.
I think that's why I think the 12 to 14 team thing could be more compelling under that system, but it's still a long way away. We're probably going to have a few playoffs.
Oh, no,
before
we're
that.
not a long way away. We are 2 years away.
From the CBA, from having a CBA for
Excuse me.
players.
I thought you meant 14-team playoffs.
Oh no! It looks like we're going that way.
Yeah,
Remember
it'll
we went the Peter Laviolette haircut.
Yeah.
We went straight from A to Z.
That's what
there
it
was
will
no
be.
B, C, D, or E.
That's what it will be in 2026 because they already have a proposed contract written up. It'll be 2026 through 2031 is the TV deal. And then in 2031, we'll have a 16-team playoff, if not even more.
So everybody gets in. Everybody gets in. Here's the world of the participation trophies.
I'm for it.
You get in, even though you're going to get your tail whooped 69-5. Here you go. How they get 5 points? A field goal and a safety. There you go.
I am for it. Like in a 16-team playoff, I say, you have 6 automatic bids to the 4 Power 4 conference champions, and then 2 Group of 5 conference champions, and then you have the 10 other teams play in the first round, and then you go from there. I'm for that. But all of this 3 automatic bids to the SEC and 2 automatic bids to the ACC, no, none of that. You get one, your conference champion gets in.
And if you want to have a
and then from there-
16-team league or a 20-team league, that's
So be it,
fine.
yeah.
But you only have one champion.
Yes.
Only one can be the champion of your league.
You don't get an automatic bid for being the 3rd best team.
No.
You don't get an automatic bid
Not
for not even
automatic.
making your conference championship game. That is ridiculous. Ridiculous. We'll get your thoughts on this coming up next and continue the conversation of the future of college football, because one thing that Willie brought up sounds like it's not if, it's when, and when could be awfully soon. And we'll get into that coming up next. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tomorrow as Vanderbilt men's basketball takes on LSU at home. Pre-game at 2 p.m., tip-off at 2:30 with coverage. It's the Caroline and Willie Bowl. Caroline and Willie Bowl. Coverage also available on 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
Oh, yes, LSU, Vanderbilt tomorrow. Caroline and I will be keeping notes of that one. Keep an eye on that game when we go to their Take It to the Bank, coming up at 1:45. Let me tell you in the meantime, too, about Loan Pronto. They have been helping people a lot get rid of debt from, say, a credit card bill or another personal loan or something else that has a high interest rate, and it's just killing you month after month, trying to catch up with the interest payments. It happens to a lot of people. But if you're a homeowner, you can get that credit card bill down to zero by being 100% debt-free through the Equity Express line of credit that Loan Pronto has. If you're a homeowner, your home's value is way up these days, and you can use that money to wipe out the credit card bill. So you can get this money very quickly with the AI-based system. You can get approval in about 10 minutes, and then the money will be there for you in just a matter of days with not much documentation, no appraisal, no hassle. And so you get those thousands of dollars and boom, you pay off that credit card bill and you're in a better position. And most homeowners, when they do this system, they're going to save over $800 a month doing this on the average. So call now and find out more. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval. Equal housing lender.
Caroline, Willy, Dmase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. We are broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. We're talking about the most recent proposed model for a 14-team playoff. And you're probably thinking, wait, whoa, 14? I thought we just got to 12. You would be correct. And we're already talking about 14. Life comes at you fast. So in this 14-team proposed model that the College Football Playoff Committee is now deliberating over, the SEC and the Big Ten would get 3 automatic bids. The ACC and the Big 12 would get 2 automatic bids, which leaves 1 automatic bid for the group of 5 and 3 at-large bids. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Be the best 14 teams, and you get an automatic bid if you win your conference championship. Seems pretty cut and dry to me. But there's also this very juicy little tidbit. Pete Thamel and Heather Dinich of ESPN.com had a full report, a full breakdown of how we got here, of the College Football Playoff Committee's conversations, some roadblocks that they might be facing. It also says, one high-ranking official involved in the discussions told ESPN on Wednesday that the presidents and chancellors in both the SEC and Big Ten are having conversations about whether to continue their NCAA membership. It's a move that would impact and could possibly derail the TV agreement meaning the 14-team playoff TV agreement. Quote, those conversations are happening. I feel pretty strongly about pulling away. I'd say very strongly. What do we know about college football? When we hear that their conversations are happening, it means it's happening. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to pull away from the NCAA, and I think it's going to happen sooner than we think.
I think this could be a bargaining chip. If we don't get our automatic 3 bids in the Big Ten and the SEC, we're taking our football and we're walking. Give us our 3 bids, so we're going. We're going to get the money regardless. We're going to get it because television, these networks want to see, in their minds, they want to see us play and the Big Ten play. There's some teams in the SEC, meaning ACC, that are good. There's Big 12 teams. Hell, don't even worry about the Pac-12. They're non-existent right now. But if you want us to stay in this, give us automatic bid, 3. Matter of fact, give us 4.
And it's a good thought. Except the NCAA has nothing to do with the college football playoff. And that's the difference, is if the SEC and the Big Ten want to break away from the NCAA, essentially their new governing body will be the college football playoff.
My thing
trying
is
to get to that point, or are they just trying to make it so advantageous that all the other conferences and leagues just say, I don't want to be – that's not fair. Good. You don't think it's fair? We'll just have our own thing.
But it's but other conferences I say that because other conferences look at it, and I'm sure the ACC and the Big 12, not necessarily the Pac-12, but the ACC and the Big 12 are probably looking at it like, no, you're not getting 12. I mean, you're not getting, automatic bids of 3. Because what if our team, we should get an automatic bid of 3. What if our third best team is better than your third best team? Totally. So shouldn't we get an automatic bid? Well, the Big Ten and SEC say, no, unless y'all give us this, then we're going to go set up our own thing. Regardless of what y'all do, we're going to set, and we're going to get the money. So either you cave in and give us our automatic 3 and possibly even 4, or we're just going to take the 2 biggest footballs out there and we're going to go and establish our own thing.
Yeah.
That's what is at play here, and I get why, because of the money and everything, but they're not – Greg Sankey – is out for only the SEC and its teams. He's not out for the betterment of college football as a whole, right? Because if he were, then
but
the system
shouldn't you be?
We would be trying to set up a different system where everybody would have a chance to win, I think. He's setting it up so the SEC has the best chance every year of winning.
But doesn't the SEC have the best chance every year of winning regardless?
Yes, and he wants to keep it that way. Not regardless, not if the system changes, not if there's a CBA and there's more of a salary cap and things like that. I think that would level the playing field some, don't you?
But I think that if this conversation of breaking away from the NCAA, that's what it would introduce, is now a new league where you can have a CBA, where you can have a salary cap. I think that's the direction that they want to go.
But then,
I think so
okay,
too.
if that happens, doesn't that affect college football more than anything? I think even more than the NIL for this reason. What is going to be if indeed they do that, but the Big Ten and the SEC take their balls and they say we're going to start our own thing. I think that further messes up college football because now it's, do you want to play in the national championship game? Do you want to play in the real national championship game? Students or athletes will come to my school. That leaves the ACC out. That leaves the Big 12 out. That leaves the Pac, whatever it's going to be out. Because now, again, it establishes the have and the have-nots. Because these top athletes, unless you're going to be paying them ungodly money, they're going to choose to go to the Big Ten in the SEC as they have been.
And maybe that's the best thing. Maybe big
but then that destroys college football.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, but
it does
on
Yeah.
one level. On the other level, it would take some getting used to. But there could be a level of college football and
it's going to be the NFL and the USFL or the whatever it is. That's what it's going to be.
The thing is, the TV money would go so heavily into the top league. But I think you could have a really good experience if you could make the financial part work of the old model. You get a scholarship. You actually go to school. You know you're going to school. You play other schools that are a bit basically your level, and we see who the best team is. That's good competition. That's a good experience.
So if they start their own thing,
this
do
would
they
be
then
for the
play
leftover.
ACC?
There's enough players out there that I think that wouldn't be quite good enough to play at the top that could have a great experience there. But the question is financially and how many schools would want to do that as opposed to the other. I don't know. Like, what would it mean to be the best team at that level and not the best team of the pro level?
But
basically.
then you just like the NFL and the USFL or wherever other leagues that are out there, they don't play those teams because there's no benefit.
Right.
So you're going to have
those days would be over.
SEC
Those days would be over. You
and the
wouldn't
Big
play each
Ten
other.
just playing each other.
Yeah.
They're not going to play anybody else.
You could have a barnstorming tour in the
The
summer.
AFC doesn't play anyone else other than the AFC and the NFC. That's exactly what it's
But
going to
that's
be.
what I'm saying. That's what they don't play teams outside their league.
Yeah.
This would be a whole new league
Yes.
if you set up the SEC and the Big Ten. It'd be a whole new league.
Which is exactly why the ACC and the Big 12 and everyone else kind of has to bend their knee to this 14-team model because they don't want to be the ones that are, getting in the way of the SEC and the Big Ten getting what they want because they want an invitation to the table whenever the SEC and
Why
the
do you
Big
think
Ten
Florida
break away.
State? Why do you think Florida State has been trying to get out of their deal? Because they see it coming.
There is such a massive division of money that even just the ACC's TV deal, they make pennies of what the SEC and the Big Ten are making. In this new college football playoff model with 14 teams, like the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 30%, where the ACC and the Big 12, I believe, would make 15. That's huge. So you would say, well, why would the ACC and the Big 12 sign up for this? Because those individual member schools don't want to burn any bridges. They want to get invited. Florida State and Miami and North Carolina, they want an invitation to whatever is coming next in this Super League of college football. So we're not going to ruffle any feathers. We're not going to make anyone mad. We're looking at the end goal here.
They want to be in the room, but they can't get in the VIP section. But we're in the party, but the only people that go in the VIP section is the SEC and the Big Ten.
And Florida
but
State
we gotta be in
wants
the
an
party.
invitation to the VIP.
And one day we may get an invitation, but as long as we're in the party, we have a better shot at getting into the VIP as opposed to not being in the party.
But they know that their days are numbered at the party. And they want to go ahead and get that invitation to VIP before the lights turn on and everybody at the party has to get kicked out and everyone in VIP gets to,
That's like Chris Brown said. You hating from the outside. You ain't even in the party.
You can't even get in.
Exactly. You hating outside the party. You ain't even in the party. So how you gonna hate? Like, unless you're in the party, you can't hate on what's going on around you.
Right. Which is exactly why the two representatives said, yeah, no, we'll go ahead with these.
Whatever y'all want to do, we'll be fine.
Because we just want to be invited, okay? We're just happy to
Even
be
if
there.
it's on the outer rim, you'll
Exactly.
get in that VIP
It
room.
don't
Just get in the door and you're jammed
Just
up
get
in
in
the
the
back.
door.
Yeah.
That's all we care about. We want to be in the building.
You can't see Chris Brown from where you
No.
are. You can't interact with Chris Brown, but you're in the same building.
Wes in Clarksville texts in, says, you're talking about a top 12 playoffs where a no-name team could play a big school in the playoffs. I don't want to see these smaller schools like an App State play big SEC schools. Yes, I know they make big money for it. The big-name schools wouldn't be undefeated if they had to play schools that were actually good instead of playing 3 to 4 gimme games every single year.
Yeah. See, this is how everybody's wanted it for decades, right? Yeah, I like it. We play our little 3 or 4 games in the non-conference, and we play the big boys. There's a lot of games that the average fan, unless it's your team, isn't going to watch. This is what the system's been since I've been watching college football, right?
I have no interest in Georgia-Kent State. Like, joyless murder ball is great and all, but, like, that gets really old.
Right, but it's just been part of it, and it's a huge thrill for Kent to be able to say they played Georgia. Hey, I used to play quarterback for Kent. Who do you guys play? We played Georgia, man. It was awesome. We went between the hedges. What was the score? We got beat 50-10, but we got to play against Georgia. Man,
but Georgia paid us $2 million to get our butts kicked.
I think that part. And did the texter mention App State?
APSU? I'm guessing. Is that App State?
No. App State shouldn't be in that conversation.
Austin P.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
guessing APSU.
Because I was about to say, App State don't need to be in that conversation because they've beaten some teams.
App State is like
has beaten
an
some teams.
upset waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
Texas A&M
You don't want to
a couple
play
years
App
ago.
State because they
you're
mess
scared.
around and beat
when
you.
App State comes to town, you're like, ooh, that's not a
But
gimmick.
that's what. But as a former college athlete, that's what you want. Like, I knew when I signed with Michigan State, we were not better than Notre Dame. I knew that. But the idea of getting an opportunity to play in that stadium, to play that team, to get a measure, like, where do I measure up as a player? How do we measure up as a team? Yeah, we may get our fannies kicked, but let's see how we measure up. That's the experience I like for these athletes, whether it be men's sports or women's sports, because you get to be a part of that environment that otherwise you wouldn't be a part of, because obviously you were not good enough to be given an opportunity to earn a scholarship there. So I had to go to this school. You may excel at this school, and then you get an opportunity to play in Alabama or to play at Georgia or to play at Ohio State or Michigan, and you measure yourself up against that team. Again, you may get your fanny kicked, but there may be an opportunity that a scout is looking at. Oh, man, that guy played like that versus Georgia and their defense? Oh, okay, we need to take a long look at them, as opposed to just playing teams that are not on your level in a sense.
All right, now here's the one. This is my parting shot. This is Willy trying to be the conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Where
The
we're
conscience
so much
of college
in the midst
sports.
of all this green throwing around, all the money and everything like that. The most important thing, regardless of what level you end up playing at as a player, is when you're 40 or when you're 50. When you think back to your college days, do you have a good feeling of, I had a great – remember what Rick Neuheisel said?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a fun experience?
Yeah.
Did you feel like it helped you prepare for where you are when you're 40 or 50? Mm-hmm. Or do you look back and say, man, I got gobbled up in the system. Yeah, I made a few $1,000s, but they kicked me to the curb. I didn't get my degree. I was chasing the money, and I was I think somewhere in there, somebody try to think about that part of it, of where you're setting yourself up to be when your football playing career is over.
And this is what's going to happen. Somebody's going to say, Willy, shut up, man.
Well, most
Sit down,
people are.
Willy.
Yes. I'm trying to keep the torch lit. You're going to see me outside
Take
the door.
the mic from that guy. Give me the mic.
I'm going to be outside the room. I'm going to be outside the party. Won't be into the party. I'll be out there with the torch going, think about when you're 40. Think about when you're 50.
You're right, Willie. I'm not saying that you're not right. You are right 100%. But then there's going to be that guy. Yeah,
Look at that old man out there with the torch. What's he talking
They're going to
about?
stand up like, who has the mic? Willie, get the mic from him, please.
When did we get our game checks from last Saturday? Who's this guy out here?
I can already picture Willie in the college football playoff boardroom talking about the golden years and the lessons that he took away and the
Life
lifelong
lesson.
friendships that he made. And then you see Greg Sankey going, yeah.
Good for you, Willie.
So is it going to be 1.1 billion or 1.2 billion for this new college football playoff TV deal?
And then they're going to get up from the table, and somebody's going to come, hey, Willie, that was a good speech, man. It was a good speech. And they're going to walk out.
Ain't nobody care about that.
Exactly.
But it was a good speech.
Hey, Willie, you know what? You're right. You're right. I like that. But
I heard
you really tickled the heartstrings there, Willie. But
thank you, Willie.
For about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody care about that. All right, it is now time to take it to the bank, and we will do that coming up next. Nashville's best deal this week is 312 Pizza Company. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and so much more. Get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company at thegamenashville.com/deals right now while supplies last.
Like, man, sit down, Willie.
This old guy's talking about memories.
Exactly. Who is that?
All right, let's talk about League Company for a moment here. Great to have them on board as usual as a sponsor. They are a proud sponsor of the Predators through the years and a lot of the sports entities that we talk about on this show all the time. And we are so glad to have them as our partners here. We use League Company's service at our home, have for a long, long time. We've always had really good service from them. So all you've got to do to become attached to them, and I talk about this all the time, the year-round home maintenance plan where you pay a small fee per month, but you get the free checkups every year, and that preventive maintenance is going to keep you out of the big problem that hits you in the middle of the summer when all of a sudden your air conditioning doesn't work and it's 95 degrees out there. You know that could happen, but you're going to reduce the chances of that happening if you get those annual checkups from League Company. So jump on board and call 615-567-1000 or go to leaguecompany.com and ask about that home maintenance plan. It's a great way to go. League Company is a proud sponsor of our show and our station. Glad to have them on board. Ask about that home maintenance plan or any of the other things that they do with home improvement and all of the other things. Check out leaguecompany.com for all their great services. And once again, that phone number is 615-567-1000.
Here comes the money.
And you can take that to the bank.
Here comes the money.
It's now time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. Business is complicated, but banking does not have to be. F&M Bank, at F&M Bank, their mission is to make lives better by making banking easier. Visit one of their 20 locations throughout Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky or online at myfmbank.com. So before we take it to the bank this week, we'll take a look back on last week. So last week I picked up, it looks like 2 points. So the Preds would lose one game. They did not. I'm happy to get that one wrong. So the Phoenix Suns would win by 8. They did not do that. They lost by 4. But I did say the Admirals would beat Chicago. Cha-ching. They did do that.
That was win number 19.
And then that's all she wrote.
They lost the next game, the next day.
Yeah. Willy, you got 4 points last week.
4?
4 points.
4?
What are you complaining for, Willie? You got 4 points.
I had 2 picks and I got 1, so why don't I get 5?
Take it up with Nick.
Exactly.
Where is the commish? Get him on the horn.
Well, the commish is in Vegas. And I'm
Probably,
a little bit worried about Nick.
Probably indisposed at the moment.
He is in the same city as Chase and Ricky at the moment.
Ooh.
So
not a good combo.
Not a good combo. But
That
Dave
is-
James has done a fantastic job in for Nick Frazier today.
That is a motley crew. right there.
Motley crew in the slightest. But you did say that Vandy would hit 4 home runs in 3 games. They did do that, cha-ching.
Okay.
But Alabama did not beat Kentucky.
So
fact,
was
they
it
got
just
whooped.
because Alabama got beat so bad? By the way, that was a butt kicking
Butt kicking.
by Kentucky. Did I lose an extra point just because it was a blowout like that? What?
Take it up with the
Take it up to
commish.
commish,
I
man.
should get
You-
5.
I
I
what
think
you
5.
should get.
Well, you get 1 point per home run.
Yeah.
4 home runs in 3 games.
Okay, all right. This is arbitrary.
Willie, I
right?
should
didn't
be
take it up with the
6'4", but I'm not. So
okay.
Coulda, shoulda,
All right,
woulda.
how did Dmase do?
I gotta
Dmase
take that
got
up with God.
7
You know?
points
7?
this past week.
Hey, come on, give it to me.
I
The
saw some
Preds
X's.
combined scoring more than 5 goals.
Thank you.
8 goals in 2 games.
Come on.
The Milwaukee Bucks won.
Absolutely.
Giannis did not score 35 points.
And that's why I didn't get.
Yeah.
He scored
Wait,
33.
33.
Yes.
They played 2 games, and you said they were going to score 5 goals or more. That's not even that many. You don't.
Yes, it is a lot.
That's not
so
that
what you're
many.
saying? Goals are easy to come by, Willie? That's what you're saying? Goals are easy to come by.
It's like 2.5 per game.
Willie's going rogue since the commission.
Exactly. like, Willie, goodness.
I think the commissioner was looking ahead to the Vegas trip. I think his mind was off. I don't think
so
he
are
scored
goals
it correctly.
easy to score in the NHL?
I think you and I should both have 5.
No.
I think I should have 5 too.
You should get credit, but you should get extra points on that. That was an easy one.
Willie.
Well, we'll redeem ourselves this week.
Exactly,
Willie,
Willie.
since you
I'm
are
talking to the
you got your britches in a wad,
Okay.
why don't you go first this week?
All right. Speaking of that, I was so ticked off last year when Vanderbilt was on a roll in basketball. They went to play lowly LSU, and they got beat.
All right.
And it hurt the momentum of an otherwise tremendous stretch run. I'm longing for those days because now the shoe is flipped a little bit. Not that LSU is on the verge of getting into the tournament here, but they've had some good wins here. They beat South Carolina and Kentucky, back-to-back games, dramatic fashion. So I think Vanderbilt's going to pull the rug out from under LSU tomorrow. I'm just going to throw it down.
All right, awfully bold.
I am going to say, now, according to Ken Palm, Vanderbilt is a 5-point underdog. But I'm just going to say, I'm throwing the points out the window. I'm saying Vanderbilt will win straight up against Carolina's LSU Tigers tomorrow at Memorial Gym. Give me the doors.
All right.
I'm throwing it all out on that. 10 or 0.
All right.
10 or nothing. I'm not even the side bets or anything like that. I'm just
We'll
going
make a note
10
of the
points
commissioner.
or 0.
I
Doors.
have Colorado. Colorado, Nashville. I got Philip Forsberg scoring at least 1 goal. Ohio State, Iowa. I got Ohio State to beat Iowa.
Ooh, second time this year.
Yes, I got Ohio State to beat
Deebs,
Iowa.
former
But
Vanderbilt assistant coach, taking over
Clark
Ohio State. They've won
will
some games.
score over 30 points. I got Caitlin Clark scoring over 30
That should
points.
be low
but
degree
they,
of difficulty for
but
Caitlin
they,
Clark to score 30
they're
points.
going to lose.
Tell
and
me
I got
something new.
Michigan State beating the number 2 team in the country, Purdue. I got Michigan State going to Purdue and beating Purdue.
T.
That's strong.
Bam!
That's
T.
strong.
I'm going to take Tennessee to lose on the road at Alabama, but Dalton connect with 20-plus points. I'm going to take my LSU Tigers to beat,
Go Tigers.
I'll use Willie's word, Willie's lowly Vanderbilt Commodores. And I'm going to take Jordan Wright, the former Door, to have 20-plus points in his
That is
old
not happening.
team.
That is not happening. That is not happening.
We shall see. That in the Willie and Caroline Bowl tomorrow. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back Monday at 11 a.m. Stillman Company's up next.
Be loved and love on your